Here.
Mr. Hawes. Ms. Hack. Here. Ms. McDermott. Present. Mr. Perry.
Here.
Ms. Radel. Here. Ms. Sedman. Here. Mr. Schnee.
Present.
Mr. Urban.
Here.
Mr. Vogt.
Here.
And Gimley.
Present. Okay, our first public hearing is dealing with the fiscal year budget for 2021 for Luzerne County 911. This is an ordinance that we're going to introduce 2 weeks prior to tonight. And it's to recommend that we approve some funding needed to offset the rising costs using the salary reimbursement funding. Rosa Crancer was with us that evening. It's approximately $400,000 that we use here to offset some of the costs involved with the implementation of the 911 system. So we're now open for public comment. Anyone from the public who would like to speak in regards to this 2021 fiscal year budget amendment, Luzerne County 911? Once more, anyone from the public who would like to speak to council regarding the budget amendment for the 2021 fiscal year budget for Luzerne County 911 program? Hearing none, we have a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Schnee and the segment. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
In opposition, any abstentions? None heard, motion carries. Our second public hearing is scheduled for 5:40, and that will deal also with the budget amendment, in this case, the probation department. Not 5:40, so we have 6 minutes.
You did vote. And you would say that's in the tree.
Okay, it's 5:40. We're going to call the meeting to order. We've already done the pledge of moment of silence minutes ago. Roll call, please.
Mr. Halls,
Here.
Ms. Hope,
Here.
McDermott, present. Mr. Perry,
Here.
Ms. Radel. Here. Ms. Stedman.
Here.
Mr. Sheen.
Present.
Mr. Urban.
Here.
Mr. Vogt,
Here.
Mr. Griffith.
Here.
And Mr. McGinn.
Present. The second public hearing this evening deals with an ordinance amending the 2021 fiscal year budget of Luzerne County, dealing with funding from the salary reimbursement for the renovation of the probation area. $400,000 is the amount of money that's being presented as part of the renovation cost. Do we have anyone from the public who would like to speak in regards to the budget amendment for 2021 Luzerne County probation? Once more, anyone from the public who would like to have a comment in regards to the proposed 2021 fiscal year budget amendment, Luzerne County regarding probation?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Sheen. Mr. Vogt. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any in opposition? Any abstentions? Unheard, motion carries. Adjourned to 5:40, 8 minutes. 5:50, excuse me.
This is my house.
Okay, it's 5:50. I'm going to call the meeting to order. We've already done the pledge. Moment of silence. Roll call, please.
Ms. Howe?
Here.
Ms. McDermott? Here. Mr. Perry?
Here.
Ms. Radel? Here. Ms. Sedman?
Here.
Mr. Sneed?
Present.
Mr. Urban?
Here.
Mr. Bowe?
Here.
Mr. Griffith?
Here.
Mr. Haas?
Here.
And Mr. Higgin.
Present. The public hearing is on the ordinance authorizing Luzerne County Assessor's Office to approve a homestead exclusion, $48,500 of assessed property for 2020 and 2021, and for the Office of Treasurer to disperse funds to eligible property owners in the line item in the budget obtained through the federal funding from the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. I have several emails that have been received. I'll take a minute to go through those first, and then we'll open it up for other public comment. This is from Kathy and Ed Kimmel. Please use the allotted $46 million from the American Recovery Money to reinstate the homestead exemption, where our taxpayers can use $300 for tax exemptions on their property. This is Mary Ellen Antolik and Albert Antolik from Drum, PA. Please support the restoration of the homestead exemption to the taxpayers in Luzerne County using some of the American Recovery Money from the county as received. Luzerne County has many elderly citizens that are retired and living on fixed incomes. The homestead exemption is a large financial help to the citizens of the county who both have been lifelong residents, property owners, and taxpayers of Luzerne County for over 8 decades. We fully understand how helpful this exemption is to our limited budget. Thank you for your consideration. Mr. Ortiz, please support the restoration of the homestead exemption to the taxpayers of Luzerne County by using some of the American Recovery Money. James and Donna DeFrisco, we support restoration of the homestead exemption as taxpayers of Luzerne County. It's come to our attention, the county will be receiving is $112 million from the American Recovery Money, and that $46 million would possibly be used to give each taxpayer about $300. In favor of the motion put forth by Harry Haas and supported by Mr. Walter Griffith, please vote yes on the subject. This is from Shirley Heckman. I'm in favor of restoring the homestead exemption to the residents of Luzerne County. Julia Jones, Luzerne County needs this exemption. Vote yes. Do something for the taxpayers that helps them. Support the restoration of the homestead exemption to the taxpayers of Luzerne County by using some of the American Recovery Money. The county will be receiving $112 million, and $46 million of this could be used to give taxpayers about $300. The current inflation we are experiencing is bad enough. Mr. Knittel, I'm in favor of using some of the American Recovery Money to give taxpayers a break on property taxes at the year where everything has gone up, groceries and gas being the highest cost increases. You would be doing a big favor to all homeowners by doing that. Matthew Kojak, I urge you to support the restoration of the homestead exemption to taxpayers in Luzerne County by using some of the American Recovery Money. M.T. McCulloch, it's time to restore the homestead exemption. Let's do it now. Dr. Frank Paul Durham, please support Mr. Haas's motion to restore the homestead exemption to taxpayers in Luzerne County using American Recovery Money. The goal of this money is the recovery of our economy, and what better way to do that than put it in the hands of the public so they may spend it on what is worthwhile. Too much of this money has too many strings attached if it is to be spent by governments instead of citizens. This money is being created and it's important to get it to the public as soon as possible before inflation devalues it. Please vote to instate the homestead exemption. Respectfully submitted. Richard Polomoto, please support the restoration of the homestead exemption to taxpayers of Luzerne County by using some of the American Recovery Money. Deborah Jordan, please restore the homestead exemption to the taxpayers of Luzerne County. This would be a great use of the American Recovery Money. I sincerely think this would be a wise decision money back into the already heavily burdened taxpayers' pocket. Thank you, Deborah Jordan. Richard Kimwright, I own the property at 415 East Ridge Street in Hanover, in Nanticoke. I would like the council to vote in favor of reinstating the Homestead Act because I am 68 years old and retired, and this would help me very much. Thank you. And Mr. Orban, I support the restoration of homestead exemption to the taxpayers of Luzerne County by using some of the American Recovery money. The county will be receiving $112 million, $46 million of this should be used to give taxpayers about $300. And we have one more that came in late this afternoon. Cerniak, 2 points regarding the allocation of American Rescue Funds. These funds come from our tax dollars. Many people pay taxes. Should this money be used for the general public benefit, not just one group of Luzerne County citizens? I realize that having a high percentage of owner-occupied homes in the county is a good thing, and being eligible would be nice to get $600. I would vote for the money being used for things like public infrastructure projects, which would benefit everyone. And what's the rush? This may not be an allowable use. We don't know if it is until September. The final plan is not due until the end of 2024. One idea would be quickly pushed through under these circumstances. We have a local election coming up in November. Why tie the council's hands? We're probably not going to see $56.4 million again anytime soon. It needs to be spent wisely. And we're open for members of the public who would like to comment in regards to the proposed ordinance that would allow homestead exclusion for $48,500 of assessed value for the year 2020 and 2021. Anyone from the public?
Mr. Chairman, this is Mark Rabo speaking.
Go ahead, Mr. Rabo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm kind of bewildered as far as, why, I mean, this is a no-brainer as far as homestead exemption being reinstated. I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but since 2015, there were current and former council members that said that they would reinstate it. And, like when the time came to reinstate it after the deficit was paid down, and now we have a surplus and we also have a reserve. So we met the criteria, the county met the criteria to be able to sustain any kind of problem moving forward. And now when there is an opportunity, especially now that we're on the heels of another wave of a pandemic, that people are being asked to bear the burden once again. I find it, like I said, bewildering as far as why some certain select few individuals would trust government, especially in terms of infrastructure, when just recently the state Supreme Court came down in a ruling against the state that they misallocated money that was for infrastructure spending. I find it, like I said, it is just, breathtakingly, idiotic, in my opinion, to trust state and, state government and even local government in terms of infrastructure when there's no plan in place. Okay. So in that respect, I think that the money should be given back to the residents, especially when it comes to this, pandemic and the burden being borne on the homeowners. They paid their taxes. They've been faithful to the county for many years. Like the people that have commented have said, let them have their relief. That's what should happen here, Mr. Chairman. So please consider that, members of council, because the promises that were made earlier should be kept presently and moving forward. Thank you.
Other members of the public?
Mr. Manta,
Go ahead, Ms. Manta.
I have to echo Mr. Rabo because of the fact that the infrastructure of the county and the boroughs and all the state roads of that, they've been saying, well, we're gonna use the casino money for infrastructure. We're gonna use marijuana money for infrastructure. We're gonna use every which way but loose. They're pointing. They're gonna build it. Why would we trust them now when there is funds available to help the people? Please listen to please listen, council people. Help the constituents of Luzerne County get some results for the taxpayers that are paying your salaries. Don't forget that we, the taxpayers, are paying your salaries. So why not help the people that are paying your salaries? And I believe that anybody that would think anything different than to help the people of Wyoming Valley that have strived to pay their taxes up front, to have a surplus in the county. My gosh, isn't it time to help the people instead of fattening your pockets and fattening the county's pockets so that they could piss the money away for infrastructure? I mean, sure, we have to build roads, we have to build bridges, but my gosh, there's so many other ways that they could get infrastructure money for these projects instead of draining the people of every ounce of money that they could, just like with the rain tax. And I will say that 1,000,000 times, this should be stopped because they're draining the public of all their funds by taxing. And they're doing the job of street cleaning areas that Wilkes-Barre City has their own street sweeper. Kingston has their own street sweeper. But yet Wyoming Valley Sanitary is posting signs all over the valley that they're sweeping the streets
Mr.
in
Manson,
Wyoming Valley. Thank you very much. And I'll sit and listen to my answer.
other members of the public, please. Other members of the public?
Mr. Chairman, there were some other emails too.
Some are for the voting session.
Oh, those.
At Nathan from Circuit Court representatives, I think this is absolutely an allowable use. And I've gotten responses that said this is absolutely not an allowable use. And our best bet, and again, this is not to be against this plan, it's just that we do not have the final regs. We're talking about $46 million of 56 or of 112 if you look at the total. And if we do this tonight and it's not allowable, how are we going to make this money back? Again, I'm not against the plan. I'm not against the work that Mr. Haas put in. It's just we don't have the final rules. And one of the things we talked about, we actually had a call today, was some of the things are about direct assistance. I was here last time talking about the preliminary ARP plans have 66 expense categories where some of those need additional support. So you can't just use the money across the board. You have to say why you're using the money. You have to either have a company run a survey or have some kind of paperwork filled out to document. And again, I don't think we're there tonight. So I'm not against the plan. I'm just saying that we don't have the final rule. And at this point, I don't think we should move forward.
Just to echo that, obviously the administration supports any measure that provides relief to residents of Luzerne County. I was on that call with NACO today, and I want to give you some quotes. They said to be very careful. They also said to be prudent and to wait. And part of that reason is that this money is attached to a needs-based assessment. We would have to show and document what the impact was on COVID on Luzerne County residents. The fact sheet actually references households, not homeowners. And we would have to develop some sort of performance goals of a project and the program, and we tie that in to specify the amount of money for the program before we set it up. And we're not even reaching how we would have to report this, because that would be also a heavy lift, and we would have to have very specific documentation to support this. Again, I want to echo what Mr. Sweat said. The administration certainly is not opposed to this in theory, but there's a lot that needs to be worked out. And council has to ask themselves the question that in September, when these final regulations are disseminated, and if what we submit under this ordinance is not accepted, how are we going to pay for it? So I echo again what was said today on the NACO call, be prudent.
Okay. Any other members of the public? If not, do we have a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Sneed, do we have a second? Mr. Vogt? All in favor, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any in opposition, any abstentions? None heard, motion carries. Now we're moving right into the voting session. Call the meeting to order. We're going to begin with a pledge to the flag, followed by a moment of silence, please. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moment of silence. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Ms. McDermott? Present. Mr. Berry?
Here.
Ms. Riddle? Here. Ms. Sedlin? Here. Mr. Sneed?
Present.
Mr. Riddle?
Here.
Mr. Vogt?
Here.
Mr. Griffith?
Here.
Mr. Hawes?
Here.
Ms. Hope?
Here.
Mr. McGinley?
Present. Thank you. Mr. Luke, you want to come on to the executive session, please?
Council met in executive session here in the council meeting room at 5:30 p.m. I'm sorry, 5 until 5:30 p.m. Received a report from the Director of Corrections and also a report from the County Manager. No deliberations took place and no decisions were made.
Thank you. First order of business, recognition of certain proclamations, subtle retirements, Mark Chaluba from our correctional facility, John Ivanchik from the Sheriff's Office, Ms. Evac from the correctional facility, Ms. Deborah Parker from the detective in the District Attorney's Office, and Eugene Raymond, who is a security officer here at the courthouse. So letter of congratulations and wishing you good health in their retirement. We also have a proclamation for Michael Enox. He's receiving his Eagle Scout badge, which is quite an honor. And the proclamation will be posted on the webpage for all people to note. And we're down to additions or deletions in the voting session.
Chair, let's delete number 10.
Number 10. Okay. That would be the American 250.
Yes.
All right. Mr. Bo had submitted that, but he has more information that has to be forthcoming, and we're going to wait for that information.
Yeah.
Right?
Correct.
Other additions or deletions?
Additions, Mr. McGillen?
Go ahead.
I want to add the two resolutions that were on the July 1st submission for the budget for the county manager search committee, as well as the number of appointees to the search committee.
Okay.
Resolutions.
Let's take them one at a time if we will. Okay. First, the budget. If you note on your work session agenda, we have several items dealing with the manager search committee, and that one of those items is the budget to be proposed. Mr. Griffith has submitted a resolution. What's council's desire here? Yes.
I know Walter brought this up before, but I don't really think we've had a complete discussion on the amount. And 75,000 seems like a lot of money. I don't know what you spent originally or the last time for the manager, and I think we have to look at that too.
Yeah, and we, the information that sent out at the work session, commissioners in 2011 had budgeted $35,000. In 2015, we budgeted $18,000 at council. Ms. Lawrence tells me we spent less than $2,000. So with that work session discussion, and we haven't had that yet, that's part of the information that's provided. Durbin.
I think we can move forward on resolution and just amend the amount, you know, I mean, that's,
Well,
I mean, that's really, it's just a number, you know.
let's have a roll call. All in favor of adding the resolution in regards to the budget for the manager search committee, indicate by saying yes. If you're not in favor of that at this time, indicate by saying no. Roll call, please.
Mr. Perry?
No.
Ms. Radel?
No.
Ms. Sedman?
No.
Mr. Schnee?
No.
Mr. Urban?
Yes.
Mr. Vogt?
No.
Mr. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
Ms. Hope?
Yes.
Ms. McDermott? I'm sorry? No.
And I'm a no also. 4 yes, 7 no. That's correct.
Yes.
Thank you. And the second resolution was the number of members for the search
Yeah.
committee, correct?
Don't even waste your time. It's predictable. Don't even bother.
Okay,
It's predictable.
very good. The one thing I would like to add is something that I missed and should have added when we had it on our work session, and we also had it in our voting session last time. And then we moved it to the work session because Mr. Griffith had some additional questions that he would like to ask, and Mr. Riley was kind enough to be present last time and answer the questions regarding to the CPACE program, which is the Commercial Prosperity Assessed Clean Energy Program. And I have enough copies for everybody, and it's also posted on our agenda page. Pass that, please. No. So if there are no issues with that, we would add that at the end of our voting session.
We have a roll call vote on that too, or no?
Sure. You
Okay.
could.
Good, I just
Roll
want to
call.
be fair across the board for
That's no
everybody.
problem, Mr. Griffin. We're trying to be fair.
And I can see that.
Yeah, you're right. Roll call on adding that agenda item?
Ms. Radel? Yes. Ms. Sedman?
Yes.
Mr. Schnee?
Yes.
Mr. Urban?
No.
Mr. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Griffith?
No.
Mr. Haas?
No.
Ms. Hope?
Yes.
Ms. McDermott?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
Yes.
And Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
3 no.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, it's added. Do we have a motion to adopt the voting session agenda?
One more, Mr. Chair, if I could.
Mr. Haas, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. I'd like to remove item number 7. Approving request for Hazleton regarding tax considerations of land bank properties. I thought we had a lengthy discussion last work session that there's a lot of missing links here for this to go forward. And again, serving on the Blight Property Review Committee, we spent a long time making sure that no stone was unturned. And clearly the Hazleton City Administration didn't have all those T's crossed and I's dotted. And I said, we're looking at least 6 months. I suggested talking to Mayor Lombardo with the Northeast Northern Valley Land Bank, right at Pittston. And here it is suddenly on the agenda. I don't know, we're called moving this meeting forward as a group. I don't think anybody supported moving this forward, but.
I don't think we had any kind of idea on that, Mr. Haas, but it was on the work session.
Right.
And I know that they did talk to the Pittston group,
Yeah.
Mayor Lombardo particularly, but there's a group official there. You had a question or two in regards to that last time. And if I'm correct, I think I may have given you some information that was incorrect. Back in 2015, when the Pittston group came to us, and interesting enough, you made a motion in regards to one of the amendments that I did with that group. They had asked for 10 years of taxes that they would get 50% back. And your motion was to make it 5 years. And that's what passed, it's 5 years. So essentially what we did with the Pittston group at that time was provided the tax abatement for the properties. Once they took over, they got 5 years where they got 50% of the taxes back, 50% stayed with the county. So that would be this. I'm hopeful that if we get to that point, that would be the similar kind of proposal we would present to Hazleton. Try to be fair to both of the land banks.
Absolutely.
So, but as far as
May I make a comment about that? Or I don't know when audience comments. It's Maria Giacchetti, Hazleton. I was just wondering, are audience's members going to be able to make a comment on this or ask a question about the land grant, Hazleton?
land bank?
No?
The land bank, is that what you're speaking about? I think it's a land grant.
A land bank. Oh, I'm sorry. I
We
missed
do
one.
have public comment prior to agenda, so please hang on if you would.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. At that time, I think Mr. Haas, the Pittston group was pretty much the same situation as the Hazleton currently group is. And it's their program. The only thing we provided for them was we gave them abatement on taxes of the properties they took over. And we gave them 5 years, 50% of the taxes during that 5 years. And that was the contract that we got.
But again, there's a lot of laws, because you know me, I don't think I have to debate that. I'm not a super fan of combating blight anywhere in Luzerne County. I think this is a good idea, but again, a lot of, there's been no forward movement. They haven't had a committee formed, they don't have a budget. A lot, we just disapproved the wood budget because we weren't too clear on the budget. It's the same kind of situation in this case.
I think the wood budget and this budget is two different animals personally.
Right.
But I think that the Pittston group was at the same spot when they came to us in 2015.
So who would debate this? I mean, I just don't. I don't
Okay, you made it, you want a motion to remove it? Or?
Yeah, motion to remove it, yes.
Okay. Let's have a roll call. Do you want to add this? If we want to have it as part of the agenda, Mr. Haas's motion is to remove it, so you vote no. If you want to remove it, you would vote yes.
Well, I think his motion is to remove it, so if you vote yes, that's to remove it.
That's correct. You
Right.
vote yes, it will be removed from the agenda. Okay? Roll call, please.
Ms. Radel?
Yes.
Ms. Sedman?
No.
Mr. Schneep?
No.
Mr. Urban?
Yes.
Mr. Vogt?
No.
Mr. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Haas?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Ms. McDermott?
Yes.
Mr. Perry?
No.
Mr. McGinley?
No.
6 and 5.
6 yes, right?
6 yes.
So it's removed. Okay. Anything else on additions or deletions? Do we You have a motion to adopt the voting agenda.
So moved.
Mr. Vogt, you have a second?
Second.
Mr. Perry, all in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, any abstentions? Unheard, motion carried. And now we're over for public comment on agenda items. Anyone from the public who would like to speak on agenda items?
Mr.
please?
Chairman, this is Mark Rabo speaking.
Go ahead, Mr. Rabo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to thank the council members who voted to remove the land bank from the agenda. You are to be applauded. And Hazleton people, thank you for your consideration in terms of the land bank that would not be utilized the same way as Pittston utilizes their land bank, because Pittston, Mr. Chairman, had all their pieces in place in terms of the blighted committee and their redevelopment authority being active. So I want to applaud the council members who voted to take it off the agenda. Secondly, with regards to the homestead exemption, I would agree with the with NACO in terms of how they believe that it should be the final guidance should be waited on in September. But the fact of the matter is there needs to be consideration if it does become eligible for use for the homestead exemption, that it should be done at your vote tonight at tonight's session. If not, then, if it's not eligible use, I mean, after all, the taxes aren't done, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Sweats and Mr. Chairman, but the taxes aren't done for next year, till the budget time for December or November, is it not? So if the council were to vote on this, I mean, it's not going to be executed or implemented now. It would be implemented when the next year's tax collection. So I think that this needs to be voted on for the public, and also with regards to infrastructure. The current Congress is talking or debating about that issue right now in terms of how much is going to be allocated for public infrastructure spending. So why not just wait, on that for the infrastructure, for the second go around from Congress, instead of utilizing this money to rush to use this money instead of having the public, having relief through the homestead exemption. And also that the money that was utilized, if you remember, Mr. Chairman, from the for the gas tax and vehicle registration fee money from the state, it went to the state police overtime and pensions. And the Auditor General, Mr. DePasquale, the former Auditor General, audited and came up with $4.2 billion that was pilfered. And I used the word that the state Supreme Court used, pilfered, from the motor license fund money. So I think that council should make their consideration tonight. And if it's not an eligible use, then it could be, then council in the near future can determine what is an eligible use for the money and go from that point. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Other members of the public, please. Several other emails. I support the restoration of the homestead exemption to the taxpayers of Luzerne County.
Mr. Manta.
From the Recovery Fund, that was Mr. Wright from Youngstown.
Mr. Manta, hello. Hello.
Mr. Manta, if you'll wait your turn now. We have several
Okay, I'm sorry.
emails, please.
All right, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you reading the email.
Please use the money from the federal government to reinstate the homestead tax break. With so many out of work in 2020-21, higher taxes are not possible to pay. Michael Stash, please authorize Luzerne County Assessor's Office to approve the homestead exclusion for $48,541. The Office of Treasurer to disperse funds to eligible property owners for funds from the Federal American Rescue Plan 2021. I believe this would be a useful way to help hardworking taxpayers who have suffered throughout the pandemic. This assistance goes directly to the people who made these communities grow and thrive. That was Mr. Stash, Michael Stash. Thomas and Linda Scalisi support the restoration of the homestead exemption to the taxpayers of Luzerne County by using some of the American Recovery money. Anne Marie Sutton, I understand the vote is taking place on Tuesday, July 27th, regarding funds that came to be used as a homestead exemption for 2020-21. As a Luzerne County resident, I believe this exemption would be a tremendous help to all homeowners in the county. I would like to encourage a yes vote for the homestead exemption. Okay, Mr. Manta, you have the floor. Public first. Mr. Manta.
Okay, here's a thought that I just ran across my mind. Is there a amount that they have to take from this funds? Instead of taking the whole amount and using it on infrastructure and all of that, why don't they just take half of the amount and put it into the Homestead Act? And then if it's eligible for this Homestead Act, then they could take the other half and put it into the fund. Instead of sitting there with nothing, a half a loaf of bread is better than no bread at all. And this might be a way to solve some of the situations that Mr. Swept has, because, you know, from what I heard, we're sitting on a pile of money, folks, and you're sitting on this pile of money, and the interest rate probably is 0 on all this money we're sitting on, and it could be used to help people with the pandemic. And this second go around, you know, they have a 4th stimulus check coming out for people, and where are they going to get the money from to pay all of these stimulus bills? You know, they're going to just raise the heck out of taxes and put taxes on rainwater, put taxes on air, put taxes on everything. And you saw what Mr. Petrie did with the license plate money, misappropriated it for something else. So come on, people, let's spend this money wisely and not just frivolously. Thank you very much.
Any other members of the public?
Yes, Elizabeth Hartman.
Go ahead, Ms. Hartman.
I think as far as the Homestead Act goes, I think we should slow down on that too. I think we should slow down on spending any of this money until we see what is really needed. To throw to my mother, it would have been $600. To me, it would have been $600. That isn't going to help us at all. What, in my mind, a parenting class that teaches a parent how to interact with their child and multitask would be a much better way to spend that money than a parenting class where somebody reads a paper with a child. So I just like to say, slow down. The money's not going anywhere. Let's think about what our county needs for the future, for our kids' future, and just take a breath and breathe. It doesn't have to be spent right away. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public?
Mr. McGinley, I received a long email from one of my constituents. Do you have that? I mean, I turned off my computer.
Yeah, no, I sent it out to everybody yesterday as you requested.
Okay.
I didn't ask to be read at public comment.
Because it's long, but it's a very strong letter focusing on not using this money for the homestead rebate, but instead using it for other infrastructure. That was written by Carl Hannon.
Yeah, and I think everybody in the council got that yesterday. Anyone else?
Can we read that in public, Mr. Chairman? Would be appropriate.
I don't have it with,
Find it here.
someone who has their computer up could read your email from yesterday. No, that's not it. It's the. Again, this was sent to everybody. I think everybody got this as a letter, but we're asked to be read as public comment. You're right. Mayor Coughlin from Plymouth has provided a letter to us.
Want to read, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead. As fast as you have. It's easier for you to read it from over there, please.
Sure. Dear Ms. Saban, as we recently discussed, I was unable to attend the next Luzerne County Council work session since we had a town visiting family. I'll attempt to attend via Zoom. In any event, I would appreciate if you would please forward this letter to 10 council members so that I might share with them my thoughts on how Luzerne County should invest, not just spend, the funds it has/will receive from the federal government. I've read and seen with interest several articles in local media concerning the substantial amount of financial aid Luzerne County and/or will receive from the federal government. The politically popular but short-sighted idea of giving each resident/taxpayer 2 payments of $209, while attractive in the short run, is not a wise investment in the future of Luzerne County. Another idea floated has been to offer small business low interest loans. This too, while sounding attractive, only duplicates existing programs available from the SBA and other sources. Luzerne County has a once-in-a-generation opportunity to create infrastructure investments that will benefit current and future generations of Luzerne County residents by making a series of strategic investments in several areas. 1, Luzerne County Flood Protection Authority, providing the funds to the LCP FPA to pay for both the Corps of Engineer required upgrades as well as yearly maintenance projects to our levee system, will provide a lasting benefit to all Luzerne County residents. Financial investment in the LCP FPA may also have an impact in lowering or possibly eliminating the annual levy fee imposed by the authority. Number 2, One Valley Sanitary Authority, supporting the WVSA and funding of various projects that will assist compliance with the unfunded stormwater mitigation requirements of the Chesapeake Bay watershed. Financial support to the WVSA may also have an impact in lowering or possibly eliminating the annual stormwater fee imposed by the WVSA. 3, Delaware and Lehigh National Heritage Corridor, provide funds to the corridor and complete work over the 3 main trail sections in Luzerne County, Whitehaven to Black Diamond to Mountaintop, and Mountaintop to Seven Tops. In addition, these 3 already established trail sections providing funding to acquire row, trail design, and trail construction with the final link from the Seven Tops, downtown Wilkes-Barre, and riverfront commons. This investment will provide lasting recreation and economic opportunities for all Luzerne County residents. Number 4, the Iron Temple Building. Finally, after sitting neglected for far too many years, the building in Wilkes-Barre, located strategically between the River Common and Public Square, has been purchased by a not-for-profit group of local citizens. This group has initiated efforts to obtain emergency funding to stabilize the historic structure, but needs additional funds to complete the restoration. Assisting this endeavor will have a positive impact on the quality of life and economy of downtown Wilkes-Barre and Luzerne County. Number 5, Luzerne County Courthouse. Last but not least is Luzerne County Civic Home. Since 2001, the long-range restoration plan was approved. Several construction phases have been completed, starting with the most critical exterior projects: the rotunda skylight restoration, waterproofing the main and 4 small terracotta domes, re-roofing of the 4 wings in historically appropriate color, through the interior restoration of the rotunda. However, not yet complete is the last phase of exterior restoration, the portion of the Ohio sandstone facade from below the main cornice line to the foundation, excluding the restoration of the 3 monumental stairs, which was done in the previous phase. Completion of this last phase of the exterior restoration will enable the 1909 Luzerne County Courthouse to service the county throughout the remainder of the 21st century. Others may propose additional infrastructure projects like Dock Mountain Trail, Hillside Farms, etc., and that's fine. Luzerne County Council should be debating which of these worthy projects deserve funding and which is an appropriate level of funding investment, rather than promising to give back modest individual payments that will have no long-term benefit to the infrastructure of Luzerne County. Thank you for your time, attention, and consideration of these important items. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. Sincerely, Paul J. Hammond.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. We have a motion to approve the minutes from July 1.
So moved.
Ms. Saban, do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. McDermott? All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions and any opposition?
No.
Opposition, Mr. Griffith and Mr. Urban. Thank you. Motion to approve the minutes from July 13th. We have a motion.
So moved.
Ms. Radel? We have a second?
Second.
Ms. McDermott? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any in opposition?
No.
Mr. Griffith and Mr. Urban, any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay. Old business? Down to agenda item 1. Motion to adopt the ordinance amending the 2021 fiscal year budget for Luzerne County and 911 project. We had a public hearing a little earlier this evening in regards to this. We have a motion to adopt the ordinance.
Presented.
Second.
Mr. Sneed and Ms. Ray. On the question? Roll call, please.
Ms. Sedman,
Yes.
Mr. Snead,
Yes.
Mr. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Vogt,
Yes.
Mr. Griffith,
Yes.
Mr. Hawes,
Yes.
Ms. Howe,
Yes.
Ms. McDermott? Yes. Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Ms. Radel? Yes. Mr. McGinley?
Yes. Unanimous?
Yep.
Thank you. Number two, motion to adopt an ordinance amending the 2021 fiscal year budget for Luzerne County. This is the probation department. Do we have a motion?
So
Ms. Radel, Mr. Perry, second. On the question? Roll call, please.
Mr. Snead,
Yes.
Mr. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Vogt,
Yes.
Mr. Griffith,
Yes.
Mr. Hawes,
Yes.
Ms. Howe,
Yes.
Ms. McDermott? Yes. Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Ms. Radel? Yes. Ms. Sedman,
Yes.
Mr. McGinley?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you. Number three, motion to introduce the ordinance amending the 2021 fiscal year budget for Luzerne County 911 program. We have a motion.
Presented.
Mr. Snead. Second, Mr. Bo. As per our bylaws, there's no discussion. We just voted up or down. Roll call, please.
Mr. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Vogt,
Yes.
Mr. Griffith,
Yes.
Mr. Hawes,
Yes.
Ms. Howe,
Yes.
Ms. McDermott? Yes. Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Ms. Radel? Yes. Ms. Sedman,
Yes.
Mr. Snead,
Yes.
Mr. McGinley?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you. Motion to introduce the ordinance amending 2021 fiscal year budget for Luzerne County. That would be the ERA program, which is the rental assistance program. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Radel and Mr. Urban, correct? Roll call, please.
Mr. Vogt,
Yes.
Mr. Griffith,
Yes.
Mr. Hawes,
Abstain?
Ms. Howe,
Yes.
Ms. McDermott? Yes. Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Ms. Radel? Yes. Ms. Sedman,
Yes.
Mr. Snead,
Yes.
Mr. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. McGinley?
Yes. Mr. Haas, did you abstain?
I abstain for reasons. I have a tenant that takes advantage of that, so.
Okay,
As I mentioned
That's
before,
fine.
prior votes.
very good. Number five, motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the county manager to execute a site license agreement between Luzerne County and the Hirschfeld Communication LLC for tower site location in Edwards Falls. We have a motion. Mr. Vogt,
Second.
Ms. Sedman, on the question?
Couple questions.
Go ahead.
I'm looking at the document itself, the execution copy still has the name on it.
There are some documents that have Mr. Pedro's name on it because they were introduced at that point in time,
But if
but they
it's,
will be corrected.
yeah, I mean, if it's the execution copy, then we shouldn't have the name on it at all. The other thing is, it's just a formality. When I'm looking at the cover sheet, I think that has the Adobe signature for the dates on it. The date itself, I mean, you have dated 6/8/2021, but then there's two signatures with the signatures underneath for June 9th. So are we backdating certain things in this county? And I'm just picking up on, just the signature line that says 6/8/2021 for Mr. Parsnick and Mr. O'Neill, but then the Adobe fingerprint from the electronic signature says 6/9. So is there an explanation on that? Because the Adobe signature should be the proper date, which is 6/9.
That's just the audit report.
Well, it is
That's the
under,
audit trail report.
Right. But when you look at the audit trail report, it does say signature e-sign underneath at 6/9. So, being in technology, when you e-sign something, that is the actual physical and locked in date, time stamp, fingerprint, when the document is actually signed and approved physically. If you're using electronic signature formatting, I mean, I understand you might sign off on the sheet on 6/8, but you actually, realistically, if you sign it on 6/9, it's based on the electronic fingerprinting. So, I mean, just for contractual purposes, I think it's just sloppy work.
Anything else? Seven?
I just had a question as I read through the documents. There are so many dates and deadlines and things to follow through on. Who's responsible for that? Is that Mr. O'Neill? Is that Mr. Rosencrantz? Who's responsible for those dates and deadlines, all the timelines?
Mr. Corcoran, you want to respond to that?
I am.
Oh.
Ultimately, stops with me, but Mr. Rosencrantz is on the ground, overseeing the program, and he reports to Mr. O'Neill. I will say that with certain programs and projects, I will be updating council on a regular basis, and this will be one of them.
Okay, great.
Okay. Mr. Vo, you okay with changing the manager's name, Ms. Corcoran?
Yes.
And Ms. Saban?
Yes.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second from Mr. Vo, Mr. Saban. Roll call, please.
Mr. Griffith,
Yes.
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Ms. Howe,
Yes.
Ms. McDermott. Yes. Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Ms. Radel. Yes. Ms. Sedman,
Yes,
Mr. Snead,
Yes.
Mr. Urban.
I'm going to abstain on this because the acting county manager, in my belief, is still the chief solicitor. And when this contract was negotiated, it would have been in her office at that time. Executing such document might be a conflict of interest.
Mr. Vo,
Yes.
Mr. McGinley.
Yes.
10
10 ones. Number 6, motion to introduce the ordinance amending the Luzerne County Flood Protection Authority Articles of Incorporation. Do we have a motion?
Present.
Mr. Snead, do we have a second?
Second.
Oh, I think Ms. Radel got it a little bit ahead of the
Oh, okay.
Again, it's an introduction of the ordinance, so we just voted up or down, 4 votes. Moves it on to the next step. If it doesn't get 4 votes, then it doesn't move. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Ms. Howe,
Yes.
Ms. McDermott. Yes. Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Ms. Radel. Yes. Ms. Sedman,
yes,
Mr. Snead,
Yes.
Mr. Urban,
No,
Mr. Vo,
Yes.
Mr. Griffith,
Yes.
and Mr. McGinley.
No.
9-2.
Thank you. 7 is out. Number 8, motion to adopt the ordinance authorizing the Luzerne County Assessor's Office to approve the homestead exclusion, $48,500 for assessed property for 2020 and 2021. And for the Office of Treasurer to disperse funds to eligible property owners from line item. We will have a number there. CARES Act budget, finance, general government operation, U.S. Treasury, COVID-19 fiscal year recovery, obtained through the federal funding for the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. Do we have a motion?
Move, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Haas, do we have a second from Mr. Haas?
I'll second it.
Mr. Griffith? On the question.
I'll make an amendment to postpone with the information that we got earlier that nobody's sure of how that money should be spent yet.
Postpone?
Yeah.
Mr. Snead, do we have a second from Mr. Snead?
second,
Saban?
I don't know if you can make a motion to postpone an ordinance.
Yes, we
You
can.
can pull it off the agenda, but I
No,
don't
we
think
can make a motion to postpone. We can't make a motion to table it.
to a later date.
Postpone means a later date, yes.
Would you speak to that, Mr. Chair? Speak with the amendment?
Absolutely. On the question for the amendment. Go ahead, Mr. Ross.
Members, I sent a draft out to administration on June 28th. So we're looking at almost exactly a month ago tomorrow. And then all council, I copied all of you, and I sent you the ordinance, and I sent you the email chain so you can understand the debate. I sent you the links to the NACO site. I sent you the Department of Treasury website, and you already had the interim final rule, Mr. Sweats, sent to us. So there's been plenty of time to do research. Last week, management came before us and we projected up here 4 or 5 different uses about what we could use these funds for. I'm having a really hard time that tonight, right on the eve of this vote, now the message has changed that we're really unsure about what this could be used for. That's exactly why I sent this out a month ago, so we could hash out that debate at that point appropriately in a work session, so we could have public debate. That's why I read Mr. Hanman's message tonight, because I think it's very appropriate that we talk about this. So I'm really scratching my head, and I'm extremely disappointed at this point in the management, because this should have been hashed out, and it wasn't. Secondly, if anybody's planning to vote to postpone this, I don't know if you're going to vote to postpone. Have you read the interim final rule? I mean, you made the motion, Mr. Sheen. Did you read it?
There's no final rule.
The interim final rule that was published back in May. Because when you look at that, it is a very appropriate. It takes some reading. It takes some work. We are tasked to lead here in Luzerne County. We are not supposed to rely on solicitors. We are chosen by the folks out there, the folks at home on the TV, folks at home, to do our due diligence and to really read this stuff. If you didn't do it, I don't know how you can vote no to this tonight. Because I made the case, I showed you exactly where the information was. You just had to go look at it. It's very insulting. You remember Mr. Chest here? He sat back there last meeting. He was in tears. He was so grateful that we were considering to do this. There's a lot of tears out. There's a lot of people up and down Luzerne County, all across. You know who they are. They talk to you. I'm sure they called you like they called me. I'm sure they sent emails like they sent me. And we're going to vote to postpone this for a later date. What Ms. Grokemo said is totally true. There's a lot of paperwork that follows this, no matter what we use this for. So this is not exclusive to this particular issue. So if that's your issue, it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to happen anyway. Okay. If you did in fact read it, like I did, like I spent a lot of time reading it, the word equity pops out dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of times. Now we have had here in Luzerne County, we've had renter's insurance, we've had Lehigh, we've had utility insurance, we've had payments, we had checks sent out to people, senior citizens, we've had sent out with people with children at home. There is money coming out there. What's missing, what's equitable would be here to these poor property owners that are just barely making the cut. Yet they might have kids at home. They don't benefit from these extra checks coming out. You all have members in your family that have that could benefit from this. You have people in your communities that you serve. So what's equitable is this. It is an extremely appropriate use. If you read it, if you didn't read it, I don't know what to tell you. You're not doing your job. And I got a few more things to say about this. Because furthermore, we all remember Speaker Pelosi years ago when they passed the Affordable Care Act, that we have to pass this bill before we know what's in it. You all remember that. That was a big buzz line. Okay? Here we are. Somebody did the work, read through it, and it's extremely appropriate. And I took the management, and here we are saying, well, now maybe now it's not appropriate, so we should postpone this. We just see that there is some kind of Delta variation coming down. You see the Rhino, we're gonna have another shutdown here. I mean, if anybody out there turning the radio today, you know what's coming, everybody. So here we are. This is a great opportunity to help preempt that and to get some cash to people who are going to be in dire need. People are going to be locked out of businesses again. It's coming back to pass. So, and that's a whole other debate how that situation is. This is our chance to do our job, to follow the spirit of this law, to follow the spirit of, let me read it for you again. The title is the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. It's not the Iron Temple Rescue Act. It's not the Levy Authority Rescue Act. It's not the Sanitary Authority. It's the American Rescue Act. The property owners who pay the taxes in Luzerne County, keep the county going. That's who we're rescuing here. That's who we're tasked to do this. I am really scratching my head because we should have had this discussion last week. We could have on email, we could have put some stuff out there, but we're going to now postpone this. Please, members, please truly consider this. So please pass this support. I got two more things on. I would love to hear what everybody has to say here. Mr. Manager Pedri also talked about the infrastructure bill. When we first were notified this back in May, he said, look, infrastructure bill is coming. The federal Congress is going to pass this, so we should not use it for this. You all were here. I brought it up last public meeting. He said it. And then we also have here, we've seen in the news, they're going to pass this infrastructure bill through. So if you're thinking we need to use money for infrastructure, there's millions more coming. Mr. Manta called in. He said that if you use a portion of this, Mr. Manta, if you're listening, it's only 41% of the overall allocation. It's 41%. We can play around, help out with other situations with the remaining 59%, which will come here. So when we look at this stuff, I'm trying to cover all, I'm trying to have a civil debate here, But again, just to postpone this, to say it's not appropriate, or, oh, we should hold off on this, it's not a good argument. There are people that are struggling now. It still won't get to them probably until October. So please, on behalf of everybody out there, please support this. We'd love to hear and address any of the issues. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Other members, please. Ms. Radel.
Sure. So the first thing I just wanted to address was that when you mentioned that we should hash it out at the last meeting, myself and other members also brought up the fact that the final rule is not out and it won't be out until September. And I'm not by any means saying that I'm against this, but I'll vote to postpone anything that comes up to use this money until the final rule is out and we have more clarity on what we can use the money for. So it's not a homestead. It's not that I don't want to send a rebate back to homeowners. It's not that. It's that I would like to be sure when the final rule comes out. And Mr. Haas, I have read the interim rule.
Thank you.
So I do know what's in there. So I did the work as well. And I read all of your emails going back and forth about it. And I feel like that I'm informed. I just cannot make a decision on this until we have the final rule. That's where I feel I stand. And another thing is, I don't think any one of us on council is qualified to tell people that we're going to be locked out of our businesses and COVID is coming back. I don't think any one of us has the right to put fear in people like that in order to push a vote.
Statement.
Yes, Carrie, I also read the interim rule.
Oh, yeah, I know.
And
I know where you stand too, Sheila, so no problem there. No-
well, I wanted to, I've thought a lot about this, and this is what I think. First of all, I too want to wait for the final rules. I don't think there's any need to be rash. I don't think this money is going to be here for a while. Also, you, Mr. Griffith, myself are attending CCAP conference this weekend. I would like to hear what other counties that are in similar situations are going to be doing with their money. And I'd like to also hear from other people there about, are they waiting for the final rules? I don't think our manager said, this is what I want, she's just relaying what was said on a phone call today by NACO, which is the association you quoted as saying they're going to make the interim rules final. They're going to be the same. But that's not what they said on this call today. The next thing is, I went back through my notes on all of this. Mr. Urban, who we are not always in agreement, but he also said, don't do it as a one shot in the arm type of thing. You want to look at this as something kind of long range. And in terms of equity, there are people in apartments with lots of children that can't make rent. Yes, they got some rental money, but this isn't really equitable, I don't think. It's put some money back in the hands. It's not a restoration of the homestead, which I think a lot of people think it is, that we're restoring that act. It's not. It's a rebate on the homestead money, if I'm not mistaken. And finally, I know I heard Mr. Manta tonight, but as one of us said, or I think it was brought up last week and maybe again today, the possible mitigation of the stormwater tax, or as he says, the rain tax, or the reduction of it, is another good use for using this money. I think probably in the end, I would think from what Mr. Manta has said on a regular basis, that he would be in favor of that. Thank you.
Any other members? Mr. Chair. Mr. Perry.
I believe, Harry, the last two meetings, I did the same thing. I was consistent. I read exactly what you told me to read, and it makes sense to me. But I also said I wanted to wait to get the final ruling. I'm not totally against this. I'm not totally for it, but that's exactly the way I felt when you introduced it. And I said the last meeting, and I'll say it again. I just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. And the recent information given by the county manager and Mr. Sweat did not change my mind. That's what I wanted to do. It may not be the argument, you may not think it's a good argument, Harry. I kind of think it does. It is. That's all.
Anyone else?
I do. I don't know if we answered all the questions anyway. If someone's delinquent on their taxes, would we give them the rebate?
Because the spirit of the law, if I could, Mr. Chairman?
Well, let Mr. McDermott finish. He certainly can respond.
77,000, are they primary residents? If you own more than one property, are you doing it only on the primary property that you live in? And again, people I think are under the mindset that it is, putting it back into effect, which, the Senate said, and it's not. I keep hearing people saying reinstating the homestead, and it's only a 1, possibly 2 year. That's if we get the money next May, which, we don't know. And hopefully the infrastructure money will come through, and maybe that will handle the question or the debate of, having to use any of this money on it. But I cannot make a final decision on something when we don't have the final decision. And I don't see the reason to rush it. I don't see the reason to try to shame people into rushing their vote.
Saucy, want to respond to something?
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. I appreciate all this. I really do. I'll just address everyone's issues, questions, and concerns. First of all, Sheila, you're exactly right. This is not a restoration of homestead. It was never intended to be that. The spirit of the law is the federal American Rescue Plan Act. So it's for hardships done during the COVID years, so 2020, 2021, and that's why I would focus on those 2 years. It's not a perpetual homestead going forward. And staff has been really wonderful. Some members are here that really helped me understand some things as well. And that when we would send the letter out to explain what the situation was, they would read that this is not a restoration of homestead, it's for those 2 years. And one member even said, I put the word fiscal in the original draft. So she suggested have a calendar year because that would make more sense to a lot of people out there. So yes, correct. And again, no matter what we do, people are not going to understand some things. That's just the nature of county government. A lot of people don't necessarily pay attention. That's why we're here. We make the decisions so we can communicate what we do to the public. That's not a slam against the public or any member. It's just county government is complicated. It took me a couple of years to understand what's going on. All right, I've been here for 10 years. So I give all members, especially new ones, grace because it's a lot to take in. It's a lot to learn. But when I say you got to make sure you read the stuff, I'm not trying to shame anybody in that. That's just important. We have to read some things. And let's face it, sometimes things are not read. All right, that's not shaming. That's just what it is. So please, something like this, I would just expect everybody to do that. But Mr. McDermott, you're talking about just the specifics about, is it a primary residence? Yes, a homestead exclusion is just for the primary domicile where people live in. So it would be any single property owner and their household in the whole county. And therefore, if you own more than one property, you're not eligible. And we have to deal with that about 6 years ago. So this is not for landlords, not for people who take advantage of that. It's just for the property owners, which again, going back to the equity of the internal final rule, it's equitable because it helps everybody, especially those people at the low end of the assessed values. Some people could probably expect 100% tax abatement if their properties are assessed at like $40,000, $50,000. Same thing was asked, what about people laying on their taxes? Any other reasons to me, and it's just my opinion being one person, is that it's immaterial. It doesn't matter if they're late on their taxes, on their grocery bills, on their utility. This is the American Rescue Act. The purpose is to get money to people to help them out, to lift them up. So what are their extenuating circumstances? Not my concern. It should be our concern, and that's not the spirit of the federal act. So I don't know if that answers the questions that you had there. The final rule, and Kendra talked about this too, the final rule, and Sheila last meeting talked about other counties. She read what other counties have already done with this. Counties are already spending money on this. They're already moving forward, not necessarily waiting for the final rule because it was spelled out in that 100+ page document they sent us. So they are acting ahead of time, and I'm sure Speak Out will find out more out too, Sheila.
I think so.
So at NACO too, this is even more of a NACO issue because it is a nationwide thing, and that's why the NACO representatives that I have on my conference call were unequivocal in supporting this and saying it was an appropriate act. So I don't know how that association had two differing options. I guess it's political, just like anywhere else. You have different opinions about how things should be used, and I appreciate that. And lastly, I'm not trying to fear monger, but past is precedent. We've seen what's happened in the past year and a half with this COVID. That's just what happens here, and that's coming to pass. It's already been on the news. I heard it on the way over here. People are fearful because here it comes. So I'm not trying to fearmonger, but I'm trying to make the case, and I think it's a very valid one, that this is so essential that we get money out to the people to help them. All right. Ms. Hartman said $600 isn't a lot of money. It might not be a lot of money for her, but for some people, like Mr. Test, who was in tears here last week, it is. It's a lot of money. And sometimes it might be your entire county tax bill, like I just said. Lastly, and Sheila and quoting Steve from a previous meeting too, about stormwater remediation or the Valley Sanitary Authority. I'm all about minimizing that or getting rid of that fee. We've been around that a million times. I think it's extremely unequitable. I think it's unfair. I think it was shadily done. And I could go on, but I'm not going to at this point. I will say, if that's your concern, we still have 59% of the funds left if we support this issue. We still have 59% of $112 million. So this is 41% of the overall package. There's still plenty of money to whatever pet agendas or pet projects people have. And I don't say that in a nasty, mean spirit way, but if you would like to allocate this money somewhere else, there's still a lot of money around there. Infrastructure is coming in a separate bill. We've been assured that with the manager, some Congress people around here. You see the news all the time. It was on, again, on the radio when I came over here tonight. So please consider this. Please don't vote to postpone. Let's move forward on this, exercise some leadership, and do something for the people out there watching. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I just make a few comments.
One second.
Sure.
Okay. I have a couple comments. Number one, I take offense to the fact that you say people don't read things. I spend hours reading things, Mr. Moss.
I was not directed at any one individual.
But you directed it.
I did.
You did.
It happens.
Yeah. So, and I take offense to that. I think that's inappropriate. Number two, we don't have any needs assessment criteria built into this, which is something we have to do. And, we have to come up with a plan to do that. That's number two. Number three, where I stood. I voted against it 2 weeks ago because I think we didn't have the information at that time. We still don't have that information. So my stance has not changed. Number four is, we have $56 million at this point in time. That's what's been delivered to the county. Next year is next year. They tell us we're going to get $56 million. That's what's been said. But things change. It could not be $56 million. It could be something else. So we're looking at potentially 80-some% of this year's allotment, which is a large chunk of money. And also, we know we're going to have election at the end of the year, so we're going to have some different council members for sure. Maybe that's their decision to make with that money next year. So those are things that I think are very, very important. Things that we've talked about in the past on many issues. I know that you have been an advocate for this, but I think you've been an advocate. And I think what you see around the table is most people think it's an idea that certainly we should consider, but we should have the information we need prior to making any decision, particularly if you're going to take $44 to $48 million and put it into this program. Ms. Crocomore, do you have something you want to say?
Yes, Councilman Hawes, I have always admired your advocacy on behalf of the individual, especially the individual taxpayers who support this county. I directed the staff to work with you to formulate this ordinance, and I would do that time and time again. So please don't take this personally. But I just want to remind you and everyone else that in my presentation, there's a few things that I said. I said we need to step back and breathe. Whether it has to do what our team recommended, or if it has to do with the ordinance that's before council today. I also said that these programs are all fluid. I reiterate that today. I hope that going forward, that what our team put forward and this Homestead Act, that we can do it all. But I have to tell you that NACO, who to me is not partisan, this isn't political, They told us today on the call to be careful and to be prudent. And I would recommend that to council, whether it has to do with this ordinance on the Homestead Act, or if it has to do anything that we recommended as well. This is the biggest influx of money that Luzerne County has seen in decades and will see in decades. So I want to be clear that I and the management and our team is not opposed to this. We just want to wait to the final rule. Because the final rule will not just address what's allowable, but it will also address how we present it to the Treasury and to the federal government and how we report it. And we want to get this right. And we will always, my team, our administration will always work with you and with any council member to make sure that we get this right. Because we deserve, the people of Luzerne County deserve that we do that.
Mr. McGinn?
Yes, sir.
I just had a couple comments. Understandably, I know we have to be careful and prudent as a council. We're talking about a lot of money. Elections are always going to be pending in Luzerne County every 2 years. I think we need to do our jobs now as council members, not wait for the future or whoever's sitting on the next council. I mean, we can claim lame duck all we want, but we're really not lame ducks. I mean, every 2 years we have an election here in Luzerne County for council members. I mean, I think I would like to know how many phone calls may have been made by county staff to other agencies or promises already made. I know I already caught wind that $8 million was promised to the Flood Protection Authority out of this money. I'm looking at the work session, and there's $1 million already that's being asked by West Hazleton for the American Rescue money. So, you know, are we already promising this money going out the door to other groups or entities? You know, I mean, because people chatter in Luzerne County, and from what I gather, there was a staff call made to the Flood Protection Authority promising $8 million, you know, by the county out of this money already. You know, people talk. You know, we all know people, and we hear things. So, you know, does the county already have plans on divvying that money up? And by taking the 40+ million out of this $56 million, will we sort of put the kibosh on those plans already that have been sort of maybe pre-scripted? So those are questions in my mind. I think we should just take a vote on it tonight and just be done with it. I mean, granted, I did say that I think, you know, it should be equitable. It should be something for a long-term impact. You know, in my mind, if I'm thinking, okay, you're giving money back to people that are behind on their taxes, guess what? They do pay their taxes. That money's coming right back into the county, but in a different pot, different GL account number. And at that point, we could utilize that same money that just went back out, that came back in, for almost anything at that point in time, because it would go right to the general fund. Not saying that that's what members of the public would do, but if they were to pay their delinquent tax bill, that's coming right back into the coffers.
I'm going to answer that question.
Okay.
No one has made any promises for any obligation. And if somebody gives me a name of somebody in this administration who did, I want to know, because that person will be reprimanded.
Well, no, I was just gonna ask that if Mr. Urban is, he hears more than I do for sure. But if that, you know, I wanted to know more about that, because that's just so inappropriate.
I will deal with it. If you give me a name, I'll investigate it and I will deal with it. Because no promises can be made or should be made. That's unacceptable.
I'll speak to you privately after the
Okay.
I'll say two more things, Mr. Chairman, if I may. Sure. Number one, no, I meant no, which means to disparage you or any other member of council. You know, I've defended just about everybody here when negative comments come from outside, so you know that. I'm not do that. But I also want to say staff was very helpful in helping draft this ordinance. So again, some folks are here and I really appreciate them, especially the folks that helped. So thank you, Will, too, also for issuing that and making sure that happened. But I would like to call the question too, Mr. Chairman, if anyone else has anything to say. I would say, please, let's not postpone this and do something for the people.
Well, the amendment made by Mr. Smith, second by Ms. Simmons, postponed. So that would be the vote we would be taking. We vote yes, we postpone it. We vote no, it goes to a vote.
One thing, I just want to, for the record, my motion was just to get to the rules. My motion was not against the Homestead Act.
Right.
I understand.
Okay.
I think that,
I come from a working family. That literally,
Yeah.
understand.
I think that's assuming that many people around this room.
Yep.
Okay, vote yes, we postpone. You vote no, we do not postpone. It goes to a vote. Okay? Roll call, please.
Ms. Howe,
No,
Ms. McDermott,
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
Yes,
Ms. Radel,
Yes.
Ms. Sedman,
Yes.
Mr. Schnee,
yes.
Mr. Urban.
No.
Mr. Vogt,
Yes.
Mr. Griffith,
No.
Mr. Hobbs,
No.
Mr. McGinley,
Yes.
7 yes, 4 no.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to number 9. Motion to adopt a resolution establishing administrative assistant position for the office of clerk county council. We have a motion.
so moved.
Ms. Howe, do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Snee. On the question, Ms. Howe, you submitted this?
I did, and I submitted a pretty lengthy, I think, explanation of why I think it's needed. The work of the clerk has increased quite a bit over the past 10 years, especially with the committees and commissions and everything else. And it is a FLSA exempt position, so she gets no overtime. And she does put in long hours, and I think it's time. It was always in the vision of the charter that there would be more than one person in that office, and I think the time has come to expand it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I can echo what Linda said. Sometimes I think we take the clerk as just doing her job, and she does more than that. I had an opportunity to work for the last 2 years as an ABC chairman, and I know what she goes through. And I had an opportunity for a month to be helping out Tim here as a chairman, and I know what she goes through. It is a daunting task. Sometimes I feel like I don't even know how she does what she does. So I definitely would support this motion.
Statement?
Well, I want to thank Ms. Howe for putting that resolution together, because Sharon, last week when I talked to her, I mean, she was getting everything ready for this meeting and all the other committee meetings so that they would be timed correctly for the newspaper, even though she was gone. That's something that a lot of people would think about. They'd say, well, I'm on vacation, get someone else to do it. But very, very thorough. And, you know, every now and then there's a typing error, big deal. So we correct it. And I'm just happy you did do that. I didn't know that it was actually something that you always thought about. The only one I have ever heard of needing an assistant at one point was county manager. But
well, actually, that's not provided in the charter.
right.
But there is provision in the charter for the staff of the office of clerk of council.
Well, I think it's
Yeah.
Other members? Okay, I just have a couple of comments. Number one, back in 2012, I believe, there was a request made, Mr. Cavolo was the interim manager and was working on the budget, that we have a provision in the next budget for an assistant, I don't know if we call it administrative assistant or whatever. That position never appeared in the budget, so we've never had that position. Number Number two, we've always asked everyone if they have other positions they would like to add to the budget, that we do it during the budget time, which will be coming up in October. And I think that's a fair request. I think Ms. House is correct as far as, the workload has changed dramatically over the course of almost 10 years at this point. But we have to make sure we work out a proper job description and schedule in order to make the best efficient use of the additional staff. That would be something we'd have to do in addition to assigning some kind of salary or compensation. As far as the 40 hours a week, we've always made provisions to make sure that the clerk works only 40 hours a week, in that we adjust other schedules during the day. So she's not past the 40 hours. Mr. Baruka, when he was here early on with the home rule, that was one of the things that he stressed to us, that we had to make sure we're all within that 40-hour time frame. So we've always made those adjustments. Okay, anything else? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ms. Houck and Mr. Sneed, roll call, please.
Ms. McDermott? Yes. Mr. Perry?
Yes.
Ms. Radel?
Yes.
Ms. Sedman?
Yes.
Mr. Schnee?
Yes.
Mr. Urban?
Yes.
Mr. Vogt?
Yes.
Mr. Griffith?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Ms. Howe?
Yes.
Mr. McGinley?
Yes.
Unanimous.
Thank you. Number 10 was removed. Number 11, appointments and nominations, appointments, boards and commissions. We have one commission, in this case, a planning commission that has, as you can see, 4 terms that are available. Perry, do you want to comment about the planning commission, please?
Well, I think we're down to, I think 5 members now, or maybe it's 4. So we had a meeting, ABC meeting back in July 15th, actually, and we interviewed 2 candidates for it, along with a few other ones, and they're here for you tonight to vote on. We could certainly use them to fill out, to have, I guess we're back up to 6 then.
Okay.
Can I ask a question about this?
Sure.
And I do know something about this, because I did the ABCs for a while too. So looking at the planning commission, we do have 5 members. Their terms expire in 2021, 2022, and if I'm reading this agenda correctly, you have 4 terms that would expire in 2024. There's no term here listed on the website, county website. There are 4 open terms. None of them expire in 2023. Can you explain that?
I certainly can't. I don't know when that took place.
Because there should be a number of terms that expire every year, so that it's not like a 4-member turnover in 1 year. So I think that might be, I mean, I don't think we have 4 people to appoint tonight.
Yeah.
But I think that would be something worth looking into, to try to stagger those terms so that they expire, in a timely manner.
Yeah, but I don't know how that happened, and then.
Well, I think possibly somebody either, well, 1 or 2 people resigned, maybe somebody left the county.
Yeah, but the term should still, they should have
Oh,
completed.
I don't disagree with that, but
Yeah.
they could have been the ones finishing in 2020.
But I mean, if you still have 2 open terms, I think it would be a good time to fix that.
Well, we didn't have 2 more, we wish we had 2 more candidates.
Right. So I'll make a motion to open nominations.
Okay, Ms. Houck, open nominations. Do we have a second? Mr. Vogt, all in favor, open nominations, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Nominations are now open.
I nominate Cindy Hartman.
Ms. Hartman?
Second that.
That was Ms. Houck, okay, and Mr. Vogt, right? Any other nominations?
Nominate Carl Nasik.
Nasik.
Second.
Mr. Vogt and Mr. Sneed.
Move to close nomination. Second.
All right. That was Mr. Vogt and Ms. Houck. Nominations are now closed.
Motion to adopt a resolution appointing Cindy Hartman to the planning commission for a term to expire December 31st, 2024.
Second.
That's Ms. Houck made that motion. Mr. Sneed, you're making the second. That's the resolution.
Mr. McGinley, a good question.
Go ahead.
Just on the resolution itself, the Luzerne County manager signature, is that
Again, I
appropriate?
said that some of these were done, prior to.
No, what I'm saying is that this would just be the county council chair and vice chair to sign this and the attestation versus the county manager, since basically any terms for any ABCs is our responsibility as
You're
the
right, but that's-
legislative branch of government.
You're correct on that, but we've always had both those signatures. At past precedent.
Well, is it correct though?
Past precedent, I think it's been.
But just because it's the way it's always been done, is it
No,
legal?
no, I think there's more than just.
No, I think there is a reason. I think all resolutions have to be signed by the county manager. I don't think this is.
So I mean, if you look at all the other resolutions, they're not all with her signature on them or county manager's signature on them. They'll just have the chair and vice chair. There's no standard then.
Ordinances, chairs and vice chair.
Well, she just said resolution.
And we're doing a resolution.
It is a
correct?
resolution.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So we have a resolution, Ms. Houck and Mr. Sneed. Roll call, please.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Ms. Radel,
Yes.
Ms. Sedman,
Yes.
Mr. Schnee,
Yes.
Mr. Urban.
I'm going to abstain because I still don't recognize the county manager as the acting county manager, along with being the chief solicitor under resolution 2016-50.
Mr. Vo,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Haas,
Yes.
Ms. Huff,
Yes.
Ms. McDermott,
Yes.
Mr. McGinley.
Yes.
10-1.
Thank you. We have a resolution from Mr. Nasik.
So moved.
Mr. Bo, do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Sneed. Roll call, please.
Ms. Radel,
Yes.
Ms. Sedman,
Yes.
Mr. Schnee,
Yes.
Mr. Urban,
Abstain, same reason.
Mr. Vo,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
Mr. Haas,
Yes.
Ms. Huff,
Yes.
Ms. McDermott,
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Mr. McGinley.
Yes.
10-1.
Thank you. And our final action would be a resolution, Luzerne County Council establishing a property assessed clean energy program in the County of Luzerne and taking and authorizing other action in connection therewith. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Who was first? Ms. Sedman?
I
And
think.
Ms. Howe? Ms. Howe? Thank you. Ms. Sedman, second. On the question?
On the question,
Yes, sir.
I don't think this resolution is drafted properly, and I don't think we have enough information. I'm going to make a motion to table this resolution.
You have a motion to table? Mr. Griffith makes a motion to table.
I think this is a very dangerous piece of legislation without knowing all the.
Mr. Urban has a second. No discussion on table. Roll call, please.
Ms. Radel,
No.
Ms. Sedman,
I just want to check. I want to.
We're voting on the table. If you vote yes, we table it. If you vote no, move back to the vote.
Mr. Schnee,
No.
Mr. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Vo,
No.
Mr. Griffin,
The table, yes.
Mr. Haas,
Just an exposure, we should have to table this just like homestead. Yes, vote to table.
Ms. Huff,
No.
Ms. McDermott,
No.
Mr. Perry,
No.
Mr. McGinley.
No.
8 no.
Okay. 3 yes, 8 no. We have a motion by Ms. Houck, second by Ms. Sedman on the resolution. Roll call, please.
Sedman,
Yes.
Mr. Schnee,
Yes.
Mr. Urban,
Abstain.
Mr. Vo,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Nope.
Mr. Haas.
No.
Ms. Huff,
Yes.
Ms. McDermott,
No.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
Ms. Radel,
Yes.
Mr. McGinley.
Yes,
8 yes. 3 no.
thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
One abstention.
Yeah.
7-3. Thank you for the correction. We're now at public comment on non-agenda items. I have a few different emails.
Mr. McGinley, before we go to public comment, can we get an update on the search committee status? Are we gonna have a
That
meeting?
will be in the work session, Mr. Griffith.
What's the status on the interview process?
That will be in the work session, Mr. Griffith. And I hope that we're at the end of the work session, we know exactly what direction we're heading and what kind of schedule we're looking at. This is from Ms. Hartman from Hanover Township. Why were the flowers removed from the lawn of the courthouse? These flowers represent a life affected by a bad actor such as Lorraine Van Son, who was recently arrested by District Attorney Josh Shapiro's office. You see them discarded in a pile at 12 p.m. today near the wall of the courthouse. The staff returned them. Or do we need to replace them? Do we need a permit for them to stay, at least until investigations are completed? There's a question mark there, as well as we'd like to add a sign like they do for the Childhood Abuse Month or Domestic Violence Month that explains what the flowers are for: children, mentally challenged, elderly, and employees failed by the county again.
I can just about hear you, Mr. McGinley. I
Oh,
can just
sorry.
about hear you.
I'm trying to read and I probably put my head up. Thank you. Through children and youth, as well as other bad actors in Luzerne County. Number 2, were they removed for the viewing of the late Detective Capitano? No disrespect to his family in any way, and may he rest in peace. The family have peace during this difficult time. How does one qualify for being laid in state at the courthouse? Is this open to all county employees? Where can I find a policy for this? How many have had like with this policy? I've heard this may be the 3rd since inception. Again, no disrespect. Who is paying the overtime for coverage to keep the courthouse open, direct traffic and pedestrians during this time, open up the area for the Hearst to park? Number 3, how do families get to speak with the firm that the county hired to investigate children and youth? As it's great to see that we have hired someone, but families are all reaching out to me to see if anyone has reached out to. Our concern is you cannot investigate what went wrong. You don't speak to the families that have been affected by this. And I think I have another one here. Also from Ms. Hartman. Can we look into getting a auto reply on the county email addresses? Example, and she gives an email address. Example, the automatic auto responder, your email has been received. When we email council or individual email address, the public have no way of knowing if an email is received. As a taxpayer and as a knowledgeable person on emails and websites, this should be very easy to set up, as well as a no-cost item to your constituents, and we add this to the proper agenda. Ms. Weber, are you present?
Yes, I am.
Are you going to speak to this, or do you want me to read this?
That's up to you.
No, it's up to you. You submitted it.
I'll speak on it.
Okay. And you can have the podium. You'll be first.
Okay.
Please.
So when I spoke last time, does everyone remember what my key points were? Us? Everyone remembers? Okay. So my name is Megan Weber, and we, the people of Luzerne County, are requesting and demanding for mandatory drug testing. Now, Ms. Hartman also made a point on the foster families with, people are unaware of where the money is coming from and how the money is used. So when people are unaware of federal money and it's funneled into state and counties by number of children under the care of said agencies, So if there's a closed case and there's no issue for needed of services, the child goes home, correct? That's what everyone would think. When they're stayed into the system, the county makes money off of it. They make lots of money to where it goes to the foster home, the kinship home, adoption, and mental health services and other works as well. Now, we are asking of where this money is coming from and who's providing this. We want to see books on PennDOT, we want to see books on like how everything is formed inside this whole system. Because everything is combined, everything is, you know, it all comes from somewhere. And we're just asking, what can we do to see where it's coming from and where it's being distributed? There are families that are struggling, there are families that aren't struggling. The families that are struggling, there should be help for them, regardless on what the case is. They shouldn't be recommended because of the struggling family in the home, rather than to have the non-working families get stuff from, let's just say, food stamps, welfare, things like that. Now, with the whole children and youth thing, I think that they need to be investigated. I honestly have to say that they do. And that we should get every rat and every snake out of this county by protecting the children with low-income families and just keep this whole county from being like out of the travesties, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Like, we the people of Luzerne County, we are demanding that the corruption stops within the communities, the county, and our neighborhoods. We need new judges, we need new caseworkers, and we need the state to take over our local children and youth agencies. And we the people are requesting that foster and kinship parents should have a certain income bracket, meaning people on welfare, SSI, should not be allowed to foster or to have kinship. They should be a working family, just like anyone else. They should be having a full-time job, just how a parent would. They should help provide to keep that child safe, but they're not doing that. They're not keeping, they're keeping all the kids with people that are in SSI and that are taking off the welfare and the welfare system. We, the people of Luzerne County, are requesting the open records in family court, as well as to have them open and to be entitled to them. We shouldn't be denied by any judge. The judges should be investigated, children and youth should be investigated as well. This is already being taken care of by the FBI. The FBI is already involved in this. And we, the people of Luzerne County, should not be held accountable for pursuing documents that will benefit us and our community. And we, the people, demand some type of change in Luzerne County on how our elected officials are being ran. The system is broken and corrupt and needs to change.
Ms. Weber, could you finish up, please?
Well, I'm finished right now.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Darto?
Greetings. We all have a family. Many have grew up in a large family home. Parents have suffered throughout their young lives, taking care of us. And many have gotten the opportunity to step up on their own. But yet, this county is receiving all those money. That's my main concern. We're receiving and sitting on all this money, but yet we're not taking care of our seniors, while many of them are in danger of losing their home. It's hot. It's the winter. It's the summertime. While many politicians run from room to room in their underwear, we have senior citizens dying of heat stroke. It's the truth. What seems to be the issue over here? Why are we playing games with the people? That money belongs to the people of Luzerne County, the seniors, most especially. We need to take care of our seniors. This is frustrating. Many don't seem to understand the pain that is going through these people. Some take it as a game. Oh yeah, we're gonna raise the taxes and come on, man. What's the matter? What's going on? What's going on in their head? What can we do? What can y'all do as a county council to protect the seniors of this valley? They have worked throughout their entire lives, taking care of their family, paying taxes, and yet you're old, unable to do the things that they used to do. But yeah, you're gonna sit here and respond because oh yeah, it's a code. 2, who's keeping an eye on the money? We need to know. We need to know who's keeping an eye on that money because it's important that we have an eye on that money to be protected. And 3, what I suggest on behalf of the people, the taxpayer of Luzerne County and our sin, whoever is keeping the eye on that money, we need a PowerPoint as to where the money is going to be at and what we're going to do with it to help these people of Luzerne County. This is not a game. You're playing with people's lives. As I said earlier, while politicians run around from room to room in their underwear, we got these people dying of heat stroke. Come on. Let's grow some sense and do what needs to be done for our people in Luzerne County.
Other members of the public, please.
Mr. Chairman, this is Mark Rabo speaking.
Go ahead, Mr. Rabel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First off, I'd like to remind you and the other council members and the manager, acting county manager, that I spoke after the last work session about the infrastructure in terms of the stormwater pertaining to the state's allocation of the America Recovery Act money of $7 billion. That out of the $7 billion, over $230 million of that money is allocated for MS4 stormwater. So my recommendation and suggestion was at the time after the work session was to contact the state and see what projects they're allocating that money towards, and then work accordingly to what our projects are for the county. And then that way we might, we might have some savings after that. So then that way, we could actually have more of a cushion from the money, or more of a percentage of the money for the homestead and for other things that the county needs. And I just don't understand why I was the one who recommended that, the money should, portion of it should be used for the stormwater. And the state, and the reason I said that was because the state's doing it. So I think that the acting county manager and you, Mr. Chairman, can reach out to our state delegation, to get a portion of that money that's out of this to over $240 million of that $7 billion allocation that the state's getting for the MS4 for stormwater. Also, I'd like to, on Mrs. Houck's point about the planning and the planning commission and the members, I believe in 2015, and I would give this to the solicitor's office to review, that section 904A, section 904B for the planning code says that the council, the governing body, can appoint 1 member or up to 3 members as an alternate for the zoning board, and I believe under section 208 of the same code for the planning commission. So I just wanted to make that clear to the solicitors and to you for your edification moving forward for vacancies on the planning commission, so they still have a quorum, in case anything needs to happen for their respective boards. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Other members of the public, please.
Mr. Manta,
Go ahead, Ms. Manta.
I'm going to bring up the same thing that I brought up for the past 2 years. If you do anything with that money, please, 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 please put it towards relieving the burden of the county taxpayers of this rainwater tax. Like Mrs. Sedman said, I think that's going to be a good idea. And what Mr. Rabo said, let's get it done now. I mean, you know, we suffered with this for the past, since 2019, with this unfair, ridiculous rainwater tax. Either eliminate it or somehow ask the district attorney, the federal district attorney, to investigate the Wyoming Valley Sanitary Authority. Either put them up or shut them up. We cannot leave this go on any longer. Mr. McGinley, I don't know if you know this or not, but there's people losing their homes because they're putting liens against their homes. There is 4 people on Chase Road right now that are in the process of losing their home because of this rainwater tax. I don't know how much more I have to put this as a precedent in front of this council to say that this is an important thing for the people. Why would you lose your home for not even being connected to the sewer line, but just getting a lien put against your home for them to take your home? You're putting people out of their houses because of the fact that they did not pay a rainwater tax, and they're not even connected to Wyoming Valley Sanitary Authority. And the signs that they're putting up now that are street sweeping, they put on the bottom of the sign, this water from this drain goes to the Chesapeake Bay. And that is bull talkie. I don't know when people are going to realize that the snake in the woodpile is Wyoming Valley Sanitary Authority. Chesapeake Bay has more money than
Mr. Manta,
you
thank
could
you.
shake a stick at.
Other members of the public? We have a motion to adjourn? Yes, sir.
May I?
Absolutely.
Can you hear me okay with this mask on?
Yep. Yes, we can, but if you want to lower it while you talk, that's fine.
No, as long as you can hear me okay.
I think, well, I
I
can
take
hear
care
you.
of an elderly woman, so I wear the mask out even though I'm vaccinated because I don't want to take anything back to her.
I think in the next couple of days, we're probably all going to be wearing masks.
I know.
Go ahead, Mr.
Mr. Rabo's correct. Storm sewers are infrastructure. So the money coming into the state from the federal government can be used for the storm sewer system and not have to take it away from the money that we're getting directly in the county. Not to diminish what Mr. Haas would like to do, but I think another consideration for the money would be to build a new prison. The prison budget out of our general fund is staggering. And the only way we're ever gonna get it reduced is by building a new facility. So perhaps we should think about looking into that for a way to spend some of this money also. 2 weeks ago, I raised the issue that we in the audience couldn't hear you and stated that, well, there's glitches to be worked out. Well, here we are 2 weeks later, and we still cannot hear you. Now, it's been in the paper that Mayor Kaczynski from 44 went after the Valley West School Board because the people couldn't hear. Well, we can't hear. So if we can't hear you, your votes don't mean anything. And you're violating the sunshine law of this state. We have to be able to hear you. And if we're right in the room and can't hear you, that's pretty sad. You need to fix this glitch before the next meetings. Also, I'd like to know why we ended up with brand new desks, what we needed them for, when the other ones are out there and they're perfectly fine, and we ended up getting the same bulky room occupying desks that aren't needed. I also question, when it comes to the Sunshine Law and Luzerne County meetings, why is it that there's 14 people here and we can only have 10 from the public with a population of over 254,000 people? I think you got the percentages wrong. There should be more room out here for the people to be here than for you guys to be here. So I think you need to look at a few things. You need to get them straightened out. This isn't fair. It's very disproportionate. And you need to start representing the people and letting us hear what you're doing. Thank you.
Any other members of the public? Do you have a motion for adjournment?
Mr. Chair, I just want to take a moment to introduce Carol Thomas, who is substituting for Sharon tonight. She is the administrative assistant in the Office of Law. She is just a wonderful addition to the Office of Law and the staff of the county, and I think she did a heck of a job tonight.
That's agreed, and obviously it's a service that we need very much, so we appreciate her efforts. Motion for adjournment. Ms. Radel, do you have a second? Mr. Perry, all in favor? Aye. In opposition, any abstentions? None heard. It is 7:46. We begin at 8 o'clock. Already done the pledge and moment of silence. Roll call, please.
Mr. Griffith,
Here.
Mr. Hall,
Here.
Ms. House. Here. Ms. McDermott. Here. Mr. Perry.
Here.
Ms. Radel.
Here.
Ms. Sedman.
Here.
Mr. Schnee.
Here.
Mr. Urban.
Here.
Mr. Vogt.
Here.
And Mr. McGinnis.
Present. Additions or deletions from the work session agenda. Motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Vote, second.
Second.
Mr. Snee, all in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any in opposition, any abstentions, none heard, motion carries. Mr. Swets?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you have in front of you your monthly budget reports. There was a change. The committee had asked for, I believe it was on the quarter detailed reports. So from page 57 on is all funds. From page 2 to 56 is just the general fund. I believe that was in there for the quarter to get a full picture of the government instead of just the county general fund. So we added that. And any questions on that, even if it's a later date, I can answer them. On the general fund, we have the media report coming up at the next meeting. So you'll get a full detail, not that these 56 pages aren't detailed, but you'll get a PowerPoint, you'll get some, division by division where we think we're going to be short. A county message on where we think the general fund will end for the year will all be 2 weeks from now. You'll get a PowerPoint presentation from myself. Just a couple things. The general fund report. Some of the items are the PCCD grant. So in the prison, 4235, 56035 was a Vivitrol PCCD grant. So I think Mr. Griffith's the one that brings up the most, not that others don't look at the report, that a lot of the times we get the bill before we get the grant. And just as we saw tonight, if council introduces something, it goes right to adopt it. When administration adopts something, it takes 6 weeks. So not against the process, we understand we're two different roles, but it's sometimes hard to hold off a vendor for more than 30 or 45 days if we're coming to council or we get additional money and it takes some time to get it. Also on that note, on this report, there's about 144 million in the general fund. Today, there's about 77. We moved the 56. Some of these things that council approved, we're following the protocol, waiting for them to be adopted, and then waiting the proper days after the reconsideration. I talked to Acting Manager Kokomo today about possibly waiving reconsideration on some of those things to speed up the timeline short a little bit. So we had that discussion today. But the general fund in 6 months, there's obviously a lot of things in flux because of, we have ARP money, last year we had CARES money, but a lot of the discussion will be had, as I said, in 2 weeks at that meeting. You'll get a PowerPoint. If there's any individual questions, I do have the reports in front of me that I can answer today, I will. As always, I'm available via email and I can get back to the entire council.
Questions for Mr. Swets?
I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
Sure. Number one, there's no accounts payable?
Yeah, so actually it was more of a timing thing, and I think you mentioned it last time that we had a few on there. The way the bills came down from the different offices at the time the accounts payable report was done, there was nothing in that office. It won't happen often. We're happy to have, I'm happy to have 1 or 2 pages versus 10, but just the way the bills came down, when we ran the report, that's why the report's blank. It's not a glitch in the report. It's just that day that we had the report, everything that was outside to be paid was already paid.
Okay, and the other question is the pension payment have
Yes. Yeah, so we pay the half-year pension. I'm believing it was beginning of July. I think it was slightly after June 30th, but I'll get you that information.
Okay.
I know I emailed the retirement report. I thought I emailed council. If I didn't, I should have. But we did pay the half year of retirement. It wasn't done for this report, but we did pay the half year for the pension.
Were we going to do that on the quarter?
We had always talked about doing it half year. We have had that discussion with Mr. Azori about doing the quarter. I know we had talked with your chair about the quarter.
Yeah.
A half year was a big lift, so
okay.
Right now we're pretty content with the half year plan.
Thank you.
Sure.
More questions?
Mr. McGillen?
Go ahead.
There's 1.5 million in the $5 fee for the bridges. Is that going to be allocated out so we can get that matching grant money towards the additional bridging?
Yeah, so as everyone knows, that fee will be going away. Mr. O'Neill will make sure we get all the money. I mean, obviously he's not the state. It comes to us, it goes in that fund.
Right.
And then as that fund's done, the money will be allocated. I also know there was some talk about refunds on, my personal feel is that's the state's job. They sent out the form for 2 years, but I guess that's still to be determined.
Yeah, and that was the other part of the question. I know it's it's first of August, so we're gonna have to start figuring out how you're gonna massage that to get the people their $5 feedback, which is gonna be probably an administrative nightmare for you. But, it's something that's gonna have to be done. I did look at a lot of the budget items. A lot of them are over budget. I'll send them to you by email and you can explain.
Sure.
I have them written down, but I lost the sheet. It's not with me. It's probably still home. So I'll send them to you by email and you can explain. There's a lot of them that are way over budget, but I think it's probably because of the COVID money. It's probably transferred them all along the way. But if I'll send that to you and I'll carve in all the council, so you can explain that as well.
Very good.
Thank you. Mr. O'Neill, you have bridges in process, am I correct?
That's correct.
And you expect to spend 1.5 plus the state money also?
We have all the money allocated towards projects that are underway.
Okay,
The match from PennDOT is coming to us through reimbursement, so they're not just gonna hand us that money.
no,
But we have that money allocated and assigned and approved by PennDOT for 2 different bridge projects.
okay. Thank you. Answer your question, Mr. Rick?
Yes. Thanks, Mr. O'Neill.
Number 2, discussion regarding a resolution approving the sales of certain parcels of property held in the repository by Legal Revenue Solutions LLC, acting as Luzerne County Tax Claim Bureau. Mr. McDermott, you want to speak to that?
Yes, so everyone did probably receive that huge packet, but there was a repository sale list, which did have 97 properties on it. There are several that are duplicated on there. I believe, just checking with the league today, they said 92 are on there. If you have a problem with any of them, what they said was, if you have a question about 1 or 2 of them, table those, but we try to get all the other ones through, because as you can see, some of the people put bids in last year and did not hear anything back. So of course, if council can vote this next, 2 weeks from now, the next session, to vote to put the depository sale through, that would be great. Again, a lot of people are getting aggravated because they're not getting, anything done on these. And I know that there were some questions, Mr. Griffin, so I'll try to address those. You had said about neighboring properties need to be notified. That is a tremendous amount of work. They would, somebody puts a bid in on it, they're doing the work to get the bid, to find the property. So, they give it to you give the neighbor the opportunity to purchase it after they've already done all the research on it. Then they have the right to refuse. So, is that something that we want to take on that extra work to have people do that? They do the search. And then you have mentioned about LLCs and private companies purchasing properties without identifying who the owners are. If council votes to request driver's licenses on the owners, we can do that. So does everybody understand that? Because of the LLCs, like if you look through the packet there, they just don't list, who's in it. So if we choose, if that's something that we want, we can vote on that and ask them to produce the driver's license.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Okay, we could try to put that through the real estate committee and then get that. Okay, so what are the intentions of the people that are purchasing the property? Well, anybody could say what they want to use the property for, whether they're going to, do that or not. You just don't know. You can't hold them to it. So I think that's a pipe dream to ask for. But you could always, again, if you want to put that on there, you could always ask them what they're going to do with it. Doesn't mean that they're going to follow through with it. Placing a lien on the previous property owner for the back taxes. And I know you did, Ramilta did address this, and they would have to go through the courts. It's very costly, and it's really only a piece of paper that the judgment, how that is. You could have a judgment against someone, doesn't mean that you're going to ever get the money and see it, but that is a big process. Any changes that want to be made, because the policy that Elite has right now is out there on their website, which I don't know if you found that, Mr. Ricketts, on their website. But
Sean sent it to me. Yep.
yeah, so if you want to move forward with any changes, if council wants to do that, we can certainly go ahead and make those changes. But again, if you have any questions, I know the packet is huge, and if anybody did look through it, maybe there's something that you feel that's missing from it. We can certainly request that before we get to the voting session. in
Yeah,
2
I
weeks.
thought that was all gonna be discussed when we had the meeting with Sean and the attorney.
Yeah,
That
I
was
know,
gonna be
he
discussed
said,
at the real estate meeting, but it never was done. We were
no,
so wrapped up in the county property stuff
yeah,
that we never got to the repository. As far as the work involved to notify the neighbors around, I just hope to God nobody on this council is an actual person that buys a property right next door to them and doesn't know it. I just don't think that that's fair to do that to people. I understand there's a lot of work involved, but that's the way it is. There's work involved in anything we do, and it should be done. If I buy a property, then if I'm gonna buy a property, the people in the adjacent property, like with zoning, they're all notified. Just send them a letter. It's real simple. And if, I just think this whole repository process is upside down. And it's been like that since, and no slant against the real estate committee, but I think it could be a way more streamlined. Some of these things are in here for a year, as you said. There's no reason for that to be in here a year. This document here is not even filled out properly, but it's approved. This guy has the wrong date. 3/29 of 94 is the date on his document in the repository, and it's gonna be approved by council. I mean, a lot of these documents are just not even right. And that's not, I mean, I just think that the process itself needs to be looked at by the committee. And I think I think the committee can do that. And I think it needs to be done for the repository. I know you worked really hard on the county-owned property, but, you know, I don't see a reason why we don't notify people. I don't see a reason why we can't find out who owns an LLC. If I want to buy a property next to Bobby Schnee's house and form an LLC, he has no idea that it's me buying that property. There's no way to know that. And I can buy that property right next door to his house and he'd have no way to know it. That is just not fair. People should be able to know what they're getting. And it's just an issue for me, for LLCs. I would like to see the LLCs taken right off and not voted on at all until we find out how you're gonna figure that out. But, you know, I just don't think that the process is as streamlined as it can be. And I think it needs to have some work done on it. And I feel bad because a lot of these people have these properties for a year. They should be approved. I agree with you. We really should look at that and get them taken care of because there's no reason in the world why people put in a bid for a repository property in January. We're still working on it. Maybe the real estate committee can talk about having 2 separate dates a year like they do with judicial and upset sale. That's what 2 separate dates a year to do repository. And those dates are hard and fast dates. So going forward, we always have repository sale those days. But I mean, it's a work in progress.
It's gonna be every 2 months. That's
Sure.
what they've talked about.
Every 2 months?
Yeah, Elite's going to provide a list for
Oh,
every
that-
2 months.
Well,
So,
I
yeah,
mean,
it won't be as
if you have a
large.
hard and fast program where you say it's gonna be every 2 months, like we do with ABC.
Right, we're
No,
gonna, every
that-
2 months, you're gonna get a list of repository sale properties. That way it won't be, you know, as cumbersome as this one.
Yeah, and I think
you
Elite
look
can
into
probably, Elite
moving-
possibly raise their fee from $100 to maybe $150 fee to do that advertising and the things that need to be done. But I just think we can probably address those questions and I don't like to do it under public comment because I don't want to jam up the meeting. But I mean, maybe at the next real estate meeting, I'll spend some time with you to lay them out at that meeting because I don't want to do it here at the work
Well,
session.
you can
'cause,
certainly
you
email
know,
it too. You know,
yeah,
it's
I can
it's always
email it.
great in an email because that way I don't have to, rewrite your notes.
Yeah,
So
right.
that's always appreciated.
Yeah, so I just think there's some minor issues that if we streamline it a little bit better for councils to come, it'll make things a lot easier. And for the public, so, you know, we don't have people like Mr. Noon and other folks that are calling us on the phone going, hey, what's going on here? I put this bid in a year ago. And that's, you know, I understand their frustration, so maybe we can clean that up.
Well, I'd love to, even
Yeah,
with the
you're working
other,
hard at it. You and the
with the
committee.
other procedure. It's just unfortunate right now that we have to wait for a meeting.
Mhm.
We have to wait to see when the manager search committee meeting is, just holding off on that. But as you know, everything is a step-by-step
Yep.
process.
Yep, there's a lot of.
We certainly
lots.
need everyone's input on that.
Yep, I appreciate the hard work that the committee's doing. Just every day you get better at it. You just get one more thing to take care of, so.
Thank you,
So
Mr.
if
Chairman.
I could, Mr. Chair? too?
Certainly.
I guess this turns to Leanne. So obviously, this is going to be on the voting session next meeting for these properties.
August 10th.
The August 10th meeting. So I mean, I appreciate what Walter said, the LLCs, it's been real nebulous since I've been on this council for sure. And if there's one individual here, I think is a real slum lord. I think I don't want to put the name out there in public. I don't know what could the committee then vet some of these people then? I don't know what you're envisioning. I know it's a lot of work already.
That's
I
the
know it.
question. It's like there really needs to be a county employee to be able to help with all the real estate things because it's too much for the committee.
It's a lot of
It's
work.
too much for the chair. And, I can say, yeah, I'll try to do my best. I don't know who the next chair will be. So you can't just give that task to them, but between the repository and even the county-owned properties, there, what did I say, 244 is county-owned properties. And then you have the repository on top of it. I just don't see how any one person can do that. Even if Sharon gets, gets the assistant, she said she may be able to have her help a little bit with the real estate issues, but maybe there just needs to be somebody in the county that can actually take on that task. So,
Yeah, I'll be working with, Leanne. With that.
I have one I could suggest you after the meeting, I don't know if that's appropriate, but I mean, the LLCs rather, LCCs are another place. But the LLCs that, we're just gonna pass this through then at this point, that's what we're looking at as
well,
a council.
talking to Sean Shamani, he said if you have an issue with one or two of those, to object to those. So I'm not sure would we have to do that before we put the repository list through? I'm not really sure. If you could
I
just
would send your inquiries to Sean Shamani, and maybe they can address them. My understanding is what the league would prefer is if there are questions on some, we can maybe pull them off if answers aren't given, and you can vote on the ones that are remaining.
I just think in general, I mean, the secret partners, I'm worried about fraud. I think that certainly happens all over the country. I'm sure it's not just here, but that's my concern, just in general, no specifics, but, and again, I've had that issue as well, I've said for years. So.
Well, I think a good policy that would, be to ask for a license of everyone involved, so that at least you have proof of the owners or that, or partners, but also, again, any issues that anybody has, let's try to pull those couple out and get the rest of them to go through.
And it looks like about 6 or 7 limited liability corporations here, so I mean, maybe that might be something the committee can look at, but is that appropriate to say, well, look, we're gonna give off because we don't know who your principals are? I don't know if that's even legal.
Again, we could try to ask the league, maybe they could figure it out within the 2 weeks, between now and voting session.
Sounds to me, Mr. McDermott, that maybe in order to facilitate move this along, so most of the people are getting some replies here. If we create really 2 lists, one with individuals and one with the LLCs, council can deal with each list separately. That way we get, multiple people can take the work done.
That was kind of what my thoughts were. I appreciate.
So we'll do that
I think if we separate them and take the LLCs and maybe take them off the agenda and vote for the others.
We'll create 2 different documents, and council
And maybe they
can
have
choose how they want to handle
They
it.
may be able to get that information if
Sure.
the partners are, within the 2 weeks. So
Yeah.
I'll contact them tomorrow.
Okay.
Very good.
Number 3 is information that we received that was not requested. It just was forwarded to, I think, everybody on council from West Hazleton. And I think everybody's fully aware that, I've had different people ask me about the American Rescue Act. Obviously, these people read the paper and thought that this was an appropriate project, and that's why they sent the information. But they have quite a bit of information there, pretty well done. But that would be something, I think, at this point in time, we'll wait for the final regs.
Correct.
In order to look at it as an opportunity at that point.
Correct. I plan on cautioning council against the approved for the final regulations. We don't even have an application process in place for municipalities. When we do, if that's something that is approved by council, we will have the appropriate application process for you.
Thank you.
Just understand that municipalities have their own allocations as well.
Correct.
So.
Yeah, there is,
They do get, some.
if you approve this, you're opening the door for other municipalities, and we're not set up yet to do that.
You got that?
That might be good, but have that word percolate out there in public.
Yeah.
We can eat that money up pretty quick with
Yeah.
76 municipalities.
And I'm not commenting on the, the substance of what their
No, not at all.
application is.
Not at all. Okay. Mr. Perry, Authority of Boards and Commissions.
Just to give you a little background, when Mr. Grossman came to our community, I'm going to say at least a year and a half ago.
Okay, it's in the library, I think,
Yeah,
for the first time.
Yeah, he had talked to us a few years, about something like this, but he actually came to the ABC's, I don't have the exact date, before the pandemic. And we discussed it a little bit, and then we put it on the shelf. When he called me, he wanted to take a step back during the pandemic. So July 15th, Mr. Grossman came back on, and we had a discussion about his bylaws. And in front of you is, we made some changes to what he presented to us in the committee. Again, these are his writing, it's his bylaws. It's what he thought was what he wanted in his Luzerne County Arts Advisory Board. So I have it here in front of you. I'm not sure if Mr. Grossman is on. He was supposed to be on it, maybe just didn't make it. So if there's any comments about the bylaws, it's in your hands now. I think it's, first of all, a worthwhile adventure. This board is going to be a real good asset to the county. He's well versed in the arts. He is a well-respected guy in that field. So I just leave it to the council now to come up with any changes you want to make to the bylaws. We can move it forward at the next meeting, and of course, we're going to create we're going to get an ordinance for this, but that would be by the Office of Law. Anything else from the committee? Sheila, anything?
No, I think that's a good place. I know Walter said he had some significant concerns about some things in the bylaws, so if we can get those, I provided you with mine, you provide, we went over them with him, and he had no objection about any of the changes.
Yeah, these look good. I mean, I'll look them over. So they made the changes from your committee meeting. And so they look pretty good here. I didn't see anything that jumped out. But if I see anything between now and next session, I'll let you know. But I mean, I think the concerns that I had at your committee meeting have been addressed with Mr. Grossman when you talked to him on the phone at the time. So I think they look pretty clean.
Send anything you have to Mr. Perry. Okay. Turning over the page, reports of the council committees, and Mr. Bo.
Yeah, so F-13, we're going to meet the week after next. We got the money for 2021 that we will work to allocate.
Okay, you have a date or you just confirm it? Okay. ABCs, Mr. Perry, I think you've already.
Yeah.
I
have everything scheduled for the next meeting.
Okay. Budget, finance, and audit, we haven't had a meeting since before the budget was submitted, the audit was submitted. Mr. Haas, legislative.
Yeah, the only issue we have to the legislature, Mr. Chairman, is the I-80 tolling, the bridge tolling. And I sent the Milda some messages. I think we all got invited to the public session now, but I didn't get a chance to go over that. I know Milda got back to us all together. How are we doing that?
I'll have more information tomorrow for you.
I think, are they meeting tomorrow? Is that the date?
We have a meeting tomorrow.
So, yeah, that's the legislative issue.
Okay.
Strongly against.
Mr. Curran, I know you've been working hard on your real estate and had a lot of information there.
Just waiting for a meeting date, again, waiting to see what the manager search committee dates will be, and working on that.
Okay. Ms. Howe?
Nothing on strategic initiatives, county code review. We need to schedule a meeting to try to finish up the administrative code. So hopefully in August, we can get started.
As soon as we set the schedule for the manager search, then I think we should look at it. And see if there's an open opportunity for yourself, Mr. Griffith, and myself. Special election decision committee, Ms. Rader?
Yes, we met yesterday, the 26th, to discuss payment to Stevens and Lee and who will be receiving and reviewing bills. And those recommendations will be coming to council the next
particularly the, where the payment's gonna come from.
Particularly where it's coming from, we were looking to do a budget amendment to transfer money from the reserve to council's special legal line. And we have that, as well as recommending that myself, on behalf of the committee, review and receive bills, and they would be through council as well.
Statement?
Oh, is this something?
The email?
Yeah, I was gonna call Kendra and Walter. We were having so many things going on. I thought the email could be put on a back burner for a while until we get all the things we needed to do with the search committee.
Okay. We're down number 6, Mr. Haas.
Yeah, Blood Property Committee, Mr. Chairman, we haven't met really since COVID, so a year and 3 months or 4 months or so. My term on council is coming to an end, so I'd like to hand that off to somebody, if anybody, committee members are gonna be here. It's really fun. It doesn't take a lot of time. But, and I'm so the one that suggested that about having Ms. Lawrence have a helping hand, because she really was incredible. As anybody who's worked with her understands how diligent and right on target she is. So she really helped get that off the ground along with the solicitor's office. Ms. Toyer is not with us anymore, but she was excellent, and members of the community and the members of the committee. So we've got a couple lapses, and I'm sure, Chris, you see that with the ABCs of members. One person stepped down. I think one of the members also is his lapse, so we have to renew that, but it's a little bit of lifting.
Somebody from the planning committee.
What's that now?
You need someone from the planning commission.
Let's see, yeah, exactly.
So we probably should ask them to provide some names.
Which secretary, because that's another member. So I think we have 2 members standing actually at this point. So, we'll tell you more about it if you're interested.
You want to contact those particular people who have positions and ask them to submit names to council?
Yeah, to do that. Pass it on.
All right, and Mr. Haas, or Mr. Bowe on the county cares?
Yeah, we took the month off after our resource day at Kerry Park. We're gonna meet in August at some point.
You rested after the busy
Not yet.
Sunday? Riverfront Parks Committee, Mr. Haas.
I've heard nothing, Mr. Chair.
I heard nothing, but I saw an advertisement in the paper that they're having the River Fest. Never.
Well, we know a lot of us went down to the River Fest. That was fantastic. That's on the.
No, the River Fest is the one that they have, the Riverfront Park has.
Right. They had a
I noticed they have it this weekend. I haven't.
Yeah, it was later this year. Usually it's in like June, I believe.
Yeah.
Last week in June, so.
I haven't heard nothing or seen, there was no contact, no communication.
It's either 2 separate days or 2 separate weekends, but you're right, regardless, I haven't heard anything about it personally.
Which is unfortunate. They should be, I don't know what's going on there. Okay, Manager Search Committee, there's several items that I think we need to discuss. When I sent that out, I put down some items that are looking back at some of the information that was some articles, et cetera, all the way back in 2015 and 16. Things that came up during that search, some things that I think we have to deal with, maybe some things that might want to say the search committee, they should deal with it. But if we can, we'll go through them. First thing is the salary range. Of course, the charter has some specific information. 55% of the district attorney's salary up to 100%. Last time, I think Ms. Houghton was correct in saying that I think we put $160,000 in the budget.
Yes.
And we ended up, Mr. Petty with 120.
Right.
So our thoughts on the salary range. This is something I'm sure that the search committee is going to come back and say, we need to have something in order to put an advertisement together. Anybody's thoughts?
We're talking salary range?
Salary range.
Yeah. My thoughts are you start out at the bottom until you find out what their qualifications are, or from there.
Or do you want to put a cap?
I don't think it'd be fair to put a cap on it until you find out what the person's qualifications are at that point, But I think you have to have a starting place that we're, so the committee knows what they're offering.
That's right. That's why it's on here.
Right.
The committee's going to put an advertisement together, and part of that advertisement, I'm sure, will include compensation. So if we want to provide information for the committee, or do you want to think about it? And that our next time we meet, put some numbers in there.
What's the district attorney salary, Mr. Chair, offhand?
It's like
60,000 or something?
190.
190.
Yeah. So you're looking at a range like 104 or 5,000 all the way up to 190, which is, we did that the last time, and I don't believe that was the best approach.
Yeah, I remember that.
The other thing is I don't think we should put any golden parachutes in there or any promises.
Well, that's.
Yeah, I understand that as far as contractual stuff. I was reading part of Title 53, and I don't know if we could actually promise anything like that.
Okay. Manager qualifications, obviously, again, the charter has minimum qualifications. Do we want to add anything over and above that? Again, this is something that probably the search committee is going to come back to us and say, you know, looked at the charter, here's the information we have. Is there something else that you need to add to our advertisement? Again, these are all food for thought. You certainly can take some time to think about it. Let's send an email, you know, or whatever, and I'll put that stuff together so that next time we meet, we have more information than what's here tonight.
So this will be a work session item, Mr. Chair, or this will be?
Well,
a vote?
I think that's up to council to decide how they want to do it. I mean, I'm fine with either way.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we have it ready when the manager search committee is ready to go,
Right.
we should have the will of council ready to go too, so whatever that is.
And I agree. I think we should try to make our determinations, you know, so they have something to work with when they start. Going down to number 3, applications. Last time they allowed 4 weeks for replies. Reading the one article, I think they had like 2 applicants after the 3rd week, and they ended up with 14. So they got like 12 applicants in last week. 4 weeks seems like a reasonable time, but again, that's something that, you know, if we have direction that we want to provide to the search committee, we should have that ready. Credit check. Again, this was something that was done on each of the prospective finalists. I think we started that in 2011, right, Ms. Huck?
Yes.
That was something that
We
first
did.
council did.
Yep, we did.
Yeah, I think that was a good step. Make sure that there's nothing there that would prohibit somebody or cause issues.
Well, it makes a difference for bonding too.
Yes. And that was a little bit of a problem that we had at that first go around. Job description, obviously, the charter has some specific language again. Whether if there's anything else that we would like to add to that job description. I'll find the other job description that was put out on 2015, and get that out to council also. The charter language is very specific as far as some of the responsibilities. Just going down in the background check, that's something again that I think we've been doing very successfully, and I believe that's something we should make sure that it's part of the process.
And I think it would be up to the search committee too, but in 2015, like they also used some of the caliper tools to
Yeah.
do a profile
They
of
did.
the candidates. When they got down to, you know, the people who were.
Yeah, the 3 finalists, I believe they,
Right.
you're right, they use that tool. Number of finalists. This is something we struggled with a little bit the last time. We finally settled on 3. People remember at that time, they gave us 3 names, the information for the 3 candidates. 1 candidate dropped out. So then we had 2. The committee came back and said they had 2 people that were basically tied all the way down to like a fraction of a point. And they gave us 2 more names, so that gave us 4. But I think our final decision was we would stay with the 2. We weren't satisfied. We would possibly look to add some. Anybody have any thoughts about the number of finalists that we would ask for to be submitted?
Doesn't it kind of depend on how many applications you get. I mean,
Well, and like I said, we had 14. But the first county manager, we had a lot. And came down, I think we had 5 people that we interviewed. You know, and I think the search committee expected a lot more than 14 at that point, but that's what the actual number was.
I don't think you went any more than 5 finalists, and I guess to be 3 would be the most ideal to look at, and then 5, that's the max.
3 is the minimum in the charter. They're supposed to supply 3 names, a minimum of 3.
Minimum of 3, that's fine. And what would you say is the max, Linda?
Well, I really think it's up to the search committee, but, I mean, I think, usually, you know, when you have something like that, you'll have a drop-off point if you're ranking them. And I think that if we have the right people on doing the search, you know, people who have done this kind of thing before, they're gonna understand where the drop point is there.
I think we should leave it up to the committee depending on what because I mean, the charter says after conducting a search screening and interview process, search committee shall recommend the candidates it believes are the most qualified. So if we limit them, that takes that part away. It doesn't say anything about 3 or 4 or 5 or any number.
Well, you said 3 is the minimum.
No, that's.
3 is the minimum. It's the minimum. They have to recommend at least 3.
Where does it say that?
It's in the charter.
I don't see it.
Well, I think what you find, and I know
It says 3 individuals for the search committee.
At least 3, the search, there's 3 in the, yeah, the search committee shall recommend. You're right, Walter.
Right, so my question is, if we have 14 candidates that would apply, and the search committee thinks all 14 are graded properly, then that's the ones they should send us. That's who they feel is qualified, and then we'd have to determine which one we want to pick of those 14. So, you know, I think that, you know, if we tell them that they can't submit only 3, you know, they would have to grade them accordingly and send us the top 3 candidates, which, you know, just because they're graded at the top 3 doesn't necessarily mean those are the ones that we can pick. If they meet the qualifications and they can do the job, and the search committee feels that they should be considered, I think, you know, whatever they recommend should be what it is, but.
But if you're gonna interview 14 candidates, I mean, I would think the search committee they'll look at it and say, oh, we think these 14 are going to you. I mean, they're going to
narrow them down to the best.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And what I think we found last time in 16 was the fact that the committee was looking for council's thoughts on it.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't disagree that the search committee has the task, but I think that they're going to come back to us and say, you know, what do you think the number is? You know, personally, if they came back, if we said, say we said 3, and they came back to us and said, hey, we got 4 great candidates, I'd be fine.
Yes.
Looking for.
Well, that's my fear is that if we hamstring them and say only 3, they may not take that leap and say, well, we do really have 4.
Well, I think what you say to them is, you know, if you really think there's more than 3 candidates, please provide us that information.
I think you remember too, Tim and Linda, back when we were the search committee in 2011, 2012, we had like 35 applicants. And
it's even more than that, Eric.
But I think it became very obvious that most of them were really not up to what we were looking for. We narrowed down to like 4 or 5.
I think we interviewed 5.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think that was the number.
One broke out of that.
But if you remember, I think we actually had 3 different groups, top group, a middle group, and one not so middle.
Right.
So, you know, obviously the top group was what we focused on. And we had a consultant who was helping us with a lot of that at that point. But we ended up, I think, the top 5 and then moving around again. It's pretty tedious.
I have I found the 2011 and 2016 advertisements. I'm sending them to council.
Yeah.
And I think we could probably weed a lot of those out by maybe putting the qualifications up, because the charter says they have to have at least a bachelor's degree.
Yeah, I mean,
and it says they have to have at least 5 years of experience. We as council can mandate that it have a master's degree in 10 years if we really want to get, the best qualified as we can.
Well, that was part of the reason why I put that there is the minimum qualifications and things. If we want to add something over and above, that's fine, but we should know what we want. And we should communicate that to this committee so they know what kind of work they should be looking at. Ms. Hawkins, you're going to send the advertisements?
I did, I sent them both.
Okay,
I sent them to the council.
that's done. The committee budget is 2011, so the commissioners.
And one more thing, I'm sorry about.
Go
that.
ahead.
Advertise if I could, sorry about that. Just want to make sure, can we send them out to the CCAP and NACO publications?
We can send them anywhere we want.
I don't think that was done.
Yes, it was.
Was it really?
Yes.
You can see on all the members of the CCAP
Yeah.
publications.
Yeah,
They do it every month.
Yeah.
And they ask for positions.
No, it was done to those
It was, okay.
particular organizations.
Yeah.
Because of that, that's what people, they're looking for those positions. That's what I find.
Absolutely. It's fair. Okay, wonderful. Thanks for that.
Yeah, that's something that the committee did, and I think it's appropriate.
And there are those sites now which post jobs. I would.
And they used a couple of those too at that time. There's probably more now
Oh, there are.
than there was at that point.
Indeed there are.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's one for sure, right? As far as the committee budget, the commissioners had set aside $35,000, which was not really, was more than enough. In 16, council set aside $18,000, but the actual monies involved was probably less than $2,000. Sharon confirmed to me the other day. I mean,
What do you use the money for?
advertisement,
Well, they also used it for the testing.
Yeah,
Those
testing.
The caliper testing was,
I think that was, if I read the article correctly, I think that was $350 per
Yeah,
finalist, so
per
there's about $1,000
but it
there.
was a very, very comprehensive test.
Yeah.
Which one did you say it was?
Caliper.
So that was where they used some money, but, it's 5 years. I'm thinking if we give them maybe $5,000, I think that's more than double what we put aside in 16.
They don't pay for any of the travel expenses of the
We
candidates? They do
didn't,
it by phone? Trying to think back to.
I don't know how they did their interviews. We didn't pay any travel expenses when we
Finals for two
They were
local people,
local.
so.
two local people.
The reason I was thinking about the higher, and I think the 75,000 might be a lot over the hill, no question about it. But I just want them to be as independent as they can, which means they'd have their own solicitor to do that, and they have their own secretary. So they're gonna need money for those types of things.
I think it's.
They didn't have that at the last one. They used county council
Yes.
and they used Sharon, I think.
Yes.
So, and that, as we say, Sharon's got an awful lot on her plate already. I think it'd be better for us to give them the money to have their own independent working force behind them. Because, just for the lack of conflict, I don't think they should use an office of law attorney. They should use their own attorney. That's a search committee issue that they need to have on there. And I mean, not an hourly, but I mean, as they need them, they pay them. But, I just think that they should have that ability.
I don't know, I think that I never heard of this, that as part of your legal fees and your administrative fees being paid for by the people that are looking for the position. I just didn't.
Well, Home Rule did. When Home Rule was together, we had the county give us money for solicitors and all that stuff as a study commission. So the county paid for all of our expenses.
The study commission was a little bit different.
You could have used the county solicitors, but we didn't because they didn't want to do that.
The advantage of using the county person is that it's all in-house and we have records. Obviously, if there's a potential conflict, we choose to get an independent party, whatever that might be. But again, that's something, we'll have a resolution for budget on August 10th, voting meeting. Do we have a number that we want to think about? Are we looking blank? How much?
Like 5.
5? That's what we'll have. It can be amended. Okay?
Yeah,
If we get attorneys, Walter, I think by the hour, and we like $100 or so.
And if you have a secretary,
$1,000.
you have a secretary, you have minutes, you have meetings.
Fine, the thing is, if, we just voted tonight to give Sharon some clerical help.
Yeah.
So we need to look at that process and perhaps someone will be on board. Is that a turnaround time?
That person not gonna be on board for this search committee, unfortunately.
You want to
We
make
don't
sure
have a
and
search
advertise.
committee yet. You can't say that. We don't have a search
You want to make
committee
the
yet.
search committee as
We
independent
haven't
as you can
interviewed
make
them
it.
yet.
Yeah. Okay. So, other points. Obviously, we thought we were going to be doing a lot of work last week, didn't pan out that way. At this point in time, Ms. Houck had sent an email and said that we should make this a priority, which I agree. I think council has the responsibility to get some work done here, and obviously the first step in getting work done is to have the search committee put together. Tomorrow's Wednesday. We would have to have an advertisement in the paper indicating when we're going to have a meeting, which means it probably wouldn't be in the papers till Friday or Saturday or Sunday, depending on paper. My thought is, we have really two groups of interviewees. We did a group of 10 that we already completed, and we have a potential group of 8 that we didn't do anything with except their information. To be fair to everybody, I think we probably have to offer everybody the chance to interview under the same conditions. So what I think we have to do, certainly everybody has a thought process. If we would set up to do an interview session next Thursday, which would be a week and 2 days from this evening, that would allow us time to get the ad in. That would allow us time to contact people who have submitted information and make sure, number one, they're available. Number two, they're still interested. And number three, provide the same format interview-wise for all of them. So essentially look at 18 people.
Well, I'm just gonna say, I don't want to re-interview people that we already interviewed. And I have no problem with them showing up. If they feel that they need to add their face, their physical face, to the interview that we already conducted, give them 5 minutes to address us and say whatever else they'd like to add to it, but I don't want to go through an entire interview.
I was thinking about 10-minute interviews for everybody, because we do have potentially a large number. Obviously, the people.
Yeah, but then you're saying, so now if you bring back the people that we already interviewed, and you give them the same amount of time that you're giving the other people, now they've had a double interview, they've had, they've already gone through what they want to say, and maybe they want to refine it in their minds. And, I'm just saying, if you're going to pick people based on their qualifications, you can pick them from a resume and from the conversation that we had with them. You have a good sense of them. I don't think they need to have a second interview just because it's now an in-person interview. Zoom is actually an amazing thing, everybody's live and in person there with you, just not in the same room.
So Vito, do you think that they all need to be re-interviewed?
I don't think they don't all need to be interviewed in person. I think if you're doing the interviews and you chose to do them by Zoom, I think that's acceptable. If this is completely a council decision, I don't see any legal issues at all. If you chose not to even have any, allow the other party even to come in for 5 minutes, like Mrs. Houck suggested, I don't see an issue with that. I mean, this is a committee to pick the one who will be an employee of the, your.
No, they're not picking it.
Executive. Well, they're recommending.
No, I know.
I'm sorry.
But they're not even recommending. We don't even want a recommendation from them. We just want them to screen the candidates and then we take it from there. So.
Well, I think they have to give us a recommendation.
No, I don't think so. I don't think they have to give us a ranked order.
I didn't say ranked. I said a recommendation.
The fact is, though, you are transferring some of the authority through the charter actually does it, transfer some of the authority for making a decision that is a government decision. You're talking about giving them a budget over which they'll have authority over. That's off the topic of the initial question, which is there a fairness or other legal reason why
you should be mandated to do it, do them all over again in person, or just do the individual ones. And I think that's a decision for you all to decide. And I don't see any legal barriers to choosing to do that however you wanted to.
So Vito, you're saying if we did the other 8, we could do them by Zoom also?
I have an opinion on whether or not we could even be meeting, having these meetings over synchronous audiovisual communication. But as far as that goes, you are interviewing them, you're not deliberating. You know, you've made them public and you've given the public access.
Just to the names.
So
This way,
again,
nobody's
I
getting
took up
any advantage.
way more time as on a matter that I don't see as being a legal issue.
But the concern I have is if they don't want to interview in public and they are afforded an interview in public, should we not consider them then? Because you're saying that these ones that we interviewed already virtually need to be re-interviewed to make it fair. Well, if they don't come in and re-interview, should we disqualify them then? I don't think that's what we're saying.
No, I'm saying the other way around, Walter.
I'm talking about a totally different subject. I'm saying about the interview process, that, you know, to require the other 10 or 12 people that we've interviewed already to do a personal interview because we want to make sure it's fair. What if they say, I don't want to come in for a personal interview? Should we disqualify them then? I don't think that's what we're saying, but that's what
To be honest with you, I think if somebody said to me they don't want to come in for a personal interview, I probably would say, well, okay, that's your choice. But I probably wouldn't consider them personally, but that would be my choice. But if we do them by Zoom, the other 8 or so, then they'll all have the same format, which I think eliminates any possibility of someone saying, hey, the format wasn't right for me or wasn't right for him.
And Lyndon's right, then we wouldn't have to even think about it. You know?
So then, what, we have to be in person, but the candidates could be on Zoom? Is that it?
No, I don't believe that that's something that even requires you to be at a physical place, even under the Sunshine Act, as the Office of Open Records training person who gave us the opinion has opined. You're not deliberating, you're interviewing candidates. You actually have made it open to the public. We had discussions about the extraordinary efforts the entire county council, the IT department, the administrative branch made from day one of this, of the COVID crisis. And, you know, I believe that statute wasn't written for a time when you could have this type of setup and you could have people meaningfully participating in their government from all over the world, actually. So
Okay,
the short answer is I don't believe it's a problem at all.
So we could all be on Zoom?
Yes.
Is that what we're gonna do?
We'll set it up whatever people want. I mean, I could have.
I think that's the fairest way.
That's fine. I mean, I have no problem with that if that's what people want. Okay.
Okay.
So we'll have a Zoom meeting on Thursday, August 5th.
I have a conflict, but
What time is your conflict? Let me ask.
it is 5 o'clock. It's granted.
Okay.
That's why we canceled the last meeting, was because we couldn't hold it in public, right?
Yes, that's
Right.
So now we're going full
Well,
circle.
I think
Well, that's because we didn't know.
we canceled the last meeting with due respect because I received information at a time that I didn't have a chance to review it, believing it to be the official word from the Office of Open Records, and learned that it was a trainer who had already given us bad advice that the director of the Office of Open Records later corrected with a written retraction. So that was the issue. And my position was to absolutely
Better be safe than sorry.
err on the side of caution.
Sure.
And,
That's why we canceled the meeting.
Right, gotcha. All right. So that's fine.
So I think based on what Attorney DeLuca said and his research and things, I think we're past that point. We're not, like he indicated, we're not making decisions, we're just interviewing people. If that's the case,
What can, Jared, when we use Zoom, he records it.
Yes.
Would I be able to just
Oh,
look at it?
yeah, you
again?
can get a recording. You can always get a recording. Recording's
So
available
when I
anytime.
would get back, I.
You can certainly see it. So Thursday, 5 o'clock, if that's not a problem. That would allow us then the following Tuesday, on the 10th, we could appoint the committee
That's next Thursday then. You're talking August 5th
for the interviews.
for the interviews, right?
I'm
Not
talking
this Thursday.
Tuesday,
next Thursday.
Tuesday, August 8th, for the appointment of the committee members. Everybody, okay?
And Walter Mitchell will not be in any interviews, correct?
Excuse me?
Tuesday the 10th, which will be our regular
That's a
council
regular
meeting.
meeting on
It's
So
a
we'll-
regular meeting, but
okay,
it
so
will be
we'll
one of the agenda items to appoint the committee members. That way we can get the committee together. That night, we'll make some decisions on some of the things we talked about a little bit earlier this evening. So we can hopefully work together then to get things moving as far as the search committee. Everybody on deck with that?
Walter Mitchell will not be interviewed. He's out, he's
Well,
disqualified.
here's the situation on that, Mr. Griffith, and I think you know my stance on that.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
make that decision.
He made it on the other one.
No, I didn't. No, I
You sure
didn't.
did.
No, I didn't, Mr. Griffith. You're incorrect on
No,
that.
I'm not incorrect.
You certainly are.
Okay.
But regardless,
He was
it
late.
was right there. His email time is there. You got that information. Just so you realize that that day we had a little problem with our computer system. that day.
Okay.
So I'm not, you can't use that as an excuse. I mean,
Sure we can.
he had sent me an email earlier, I think that morning or the afternoon before, and said he's traveling, et cetera. And when I replied to him, I said, send it, but it must be in by close of business,
And he sent it to you and not to Sharon.
which,
The requirement in the ad said you send it to Sharon, but he sent it to you.
I don't remember.
And then
if he
you
sent-
sent it to Sharon the next day.
Yeah, I don't
And he
remember.
sent it late.
Yeah, I don't remember.
And he sent it late.
Well, 4:34.
Just so we're on the record, that he sent it in late.
It's right there in the
Right,
email.
and he was late. Right, and Mr. Magnath was late and he wasn't able
Yeah,
to
he didn't send
interview.
his resume.
He didn't send his resume. So because he missed his resume, he was disqualified.
That's right.
But if you're late, you're not disqualified.
No, that's not true.
So what
That's
is
not
true?
true.
What's true? Is he late? Is he able to interview or not?
That's up to the council. In 2016, and.
Council didn't make the
Remember
decision not
that-
to interview Mr. Magna.
Excuse me?
The council didn't make the decision not to interview Mr. Magna.
Yes, you did. We talked about it. And the decision was he did not submit his total resume. If you remember in 2016, Mr. Austin was out, Mr. Jamber submitted
Days late.
days, right?
2 weeks.
And we did interview him, and he was a member of the committee.
Great.
So I'm fine.
I'll let it go.
No, I'm
I
fine.
know where it's going. I'll let it go.
You want 8?
Listen, I know where it's going. I'll let it go. It's easier.
Mr. Magnu now is being correct, because he sent his.
Because we're doing the interviews
Second.
again. Yes,
Okay, all right.
right, because we did the interviews again.
Okay.
But everybody on council said, late was late.
Walter, you're the one that led the charge then.
Right, and everybody agreed, late was late.
Yeah, I
Okay.
agreed with you,
Okay,
but you led the charge.
exactly, late
Right,
is late.
okay, I agree.
So then Mr. Mitchell should be interviewed. He was late.
Can we move the agenda, please?
Excuse me?
Can we move the
I
agenda?
agree with you. But you led the charge.
We're done with the agenda, I believe. Right? Hey, whatever you want. You want 7, that's fine. You want 8, that's fine. It's 5 or 10 minutes more for that evening. But I don't have any,
Well,
excuse me?
well, in terms of Mr. Mitchell, I don't know. It was a really, really like, wasn't it like 1 page, if I remember?
Yeah, it wasn't very
Wasn't a
voluminous.
very good applicant. I just forget it.
Yeah, it wasn't very voluminous, but we did submit something. Okay. We're up to public comment.
Mr. Chairman, this is Mark Rabo speaking.
Go ahead, Ms. Rabo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In light of what was said earlier in the work session about the repository properties and, what to do with them in terms of the bidders and all that, I don't know if you're aware of the new statutes that were signed into law by Governor Wolf. One of them being the amendment to the Sunshine Act, where 24-hour notices have to be given, in terms of if there's something added to the agenda. And the only exception to the rule would be if it was affecting life and property or a de minimis situation. I don't know if the Office of Law received that from the Office of Open Records, but that was signed into law at the end of June, as well as the law pertaining to repository properties under the real estate tax sale law. Especially, and I would direct the attention of the solicitor to section 627, sale of property repository. The Bureau may, with the written consent of all taxing districts where the property is located, and here's the new addition, establish a minimum purchase price and accept an offer of any price equal to or greater than the minimum purchase price for the property placed in the repository for unsold properties without court approval and published notice of sale. The Bureau shall require as a condition of sale that the purchaser provide an affidavit that includes the information specified under the new section 502A. Any taxing district may not unreasonably withhold its consent to the sale of property. And here's the new addition. And if no consent is provided within 60 days of the date of notice was received by the taxing district, it shall be deemed that the taxing district consents to the sale of the property as a condition of its consent. A taxing district may require that the purchaser appear in person before the governing body of the taxing district charged with reviewing repository bids, and 2, provide all information required under section 502A. So that law was passed at the same time the amended Sunshine Law was passed and signed into law by Governor Wolf in the end of June of this year. So I would like to present that for the solicitor's edification.
Other members of the public? Mr. Shane?
May I have an answer to my question as to who requested the desks be replaced and why?
Corporal?
Mr. Manta.
Just give me a moment.
Hold on, Mr. Manta.
Because Councilman Griffith made that inquiry and I did respond to him. Just I have to find my response.
Based on the sunshine, can't make any additions to the generator.
Here's my response that was sent out this morning in response to the inquiry. The desks were ordered in place after council had decided at a meeting last year to reconvene at the courthouse as soon as possible. I do not have the date when that motion was approved, but it was while the state of emergency was in effect. The desks were required to make social distancing feasible. Subsequently, other concerns appeared to have kept council from selecting a start date for hybrid meetings until after the governor and the CDC relaxed social distancing guidelines. Council indicated by vote a desire to return to the courthouse. Thereafter, the administration made an effort to accommodate the wishes of council.
They're the same desks.
Mr. Manta?
Okay, I have a question for Ms. McDermott and the council. I believe that you have to have a buyer's agreement and a seller's agreement to sell property. So the awarding of a property to someone that is buying it, they have to have a, tell me if I'm wrong, Ms. McDermott, you have to have a seller's agreement and you have to have a buyer's intent. So when they do the seller's agreement and the buyer's consent, this should be brought up so that these LLCs cannot buy these small properties. And just like a big company like Wyoming Valley Sanitary Authority shouldn't be able to buy properties as an LLC. And this boggled my mind when a corporation like Wyoming Valley Sanitary Authority bought properties in Luzerne County that were blighted properties. So I don't understand that company could get away with doing it and other people can't. All right, I'll sit back and listen to the answer.
Mr. Chairman?
Well, with the repository sales act, why, there's no sales agreement, there hasn't been. There's no sales agreement.
It's under a separate statute.
There's rules how they're
Yeah.
conducted.
The Office of Law.
There's rules with how the repository sales are conducted, and
And that's
I
private.
don't
It's
know.
not a private
A sa-
transaction.
a private sale would have a sales agreement, but there hasn't been a.
Because it's under a separate, it has its own statute.
So obviously the Office of Law with the elite revenue.
Elite Revenue is responsible as a vendor of the county to handle all of the legal specialties that are involved with the repository sale. And that's why with coordination of the real estate committee, with Elite Revenue, they have lawyers who deal with all of the issues that are related to how you conduct the sale. Some of the ideas there I thought were very good ideas. Reality is they may not be permitted. We may not be able to deny a certain class of purchaser the ability to purchase a property, but I don't know, maybe after talking with Elite, if it fits within the statute, then that might be certainly something that could be done.
Okay. Thank you. Any other members of the public?
Mr. Chairman, the new law says that LLCs must be, or the principal owner must be registered if they're purchasing
Okay,
with an
Mr.
LLC.
Bravo. Thank you.
Yes, Elizabeth Hartman.
Go ahead, Ms. Hartman.
I'm just wondering if anyone has any answers to the questions in the email that I sent this afternoon. There were 3 in one email, item 1, 2, 3, and then in the second email was item 4, the autoresponders. So the flowers, does anybody know why the flowers were taken down?
Ms. Hartman, as you probably realize, the manager's in charge of the facility here. I think that information would come from the manager's office.
Ms. Hartman, just give me time to look into those issues and I will respond to you.
Okay, and then the autoresponder for emails?
Again,
Can we
that's
get
something
that
that, yes, we read that. That was something that we have to, the manager had to check with the IT department.
On agenda. Okay, and then the other thing would be, does anyone know when it was enacted, or did anybody have an answer to somebody laying in state in the courthouse? I'm curious on that one. It's my
Yeah.
understanding what I heard, that was like the 3rd one. But when was that enacted, or when was that done? And how do you
Goodness.
qualify for that?
Okay, again, Ms. Hartman, that would be from the manager's office. Ms.
Okay.
Slocum said she'd be responding to you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Have a great night, and thank you for all that you do.
Thank you. Anyone else on the public?
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Sadie, your second? Ms. Saban, all in favor? Aye. Any opposition, any abstentions? Not heard. Motion carries. Thank you.